There is beauty all around when there's love at home. There is joy in every sound when there's love at home. Peace and plenty here abide, smiling fair on every side. Time doth softly, sweetly glide when there's love at home. Love at home. Love at home. Time doth softly, sweetly glide when there's love at home. Kindly heaven smiles above when there's love at home. All the earth is filled with love when there's love at home. Sweeter sings the brooklet by, brighter beams the azure sky. Oh, there's one who smiles on high when there's love at home. Sing with me. Love at home. Love at home. Time doth softly, sweetly glide when there's love at home. Amen.
All right. We're here for the afternoon. We've had some good food, some good fellowship, and now we're ready to dig in to learn some things that are going to be directly applicable to our relationships. We'll be talking about triangles the first part of the afternoon as well as the second part of the afternoon. I just taught this exact same material, 98% the same, to my Master's in Marriage and Family Therapy class on Thursday. So you'll be learning the same things that my students are learning, the same material that my clients in session that are learning, and I'm hoping you'll be able to directly apply this to your life. Okay, great. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll continue. Father God, you are the good teacher, and you know all things. I pray be with us today. Help us to learn and understand and apply and grow. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. All right. So I have an improv background. We're going to tell an improv story together to begin. So let's get a microphone out here so we can get some help. Once upon a time, there was a nurse named, what's the nurse's name? Nellie. I heard Nellie first. We're going to go, I guess we'll go loudest voice. We're going to skip the microphone. Loud, Nellie. There was a nurse named Nellie, and she worked at the hospital. Which hospital? Okay, great. Loma Linda. Nellie worked at Loma Linda. And every Tuesday, she would get off of work and go to the grocery store, and she would collect some food because every night her family had what to eat? Spaghetti, thank you. Yes, you know Nellie. Nellie would get spaghetti, so she would go to the store and get her pasta and her sauce. Actually, very similar to what we just consumed down below, right? A salad. So imagine the same sort of meal. And so she went to check out with a little cart, and there were two lines to go in, and she chose the line that looked shorter, but took longer, am I right? And so she went in line, the short line, and there was someone in front of her that was taking a long time, even though they had a few items. What was this person doing to slow everything down? Couldn't figure out how to use their phone to pay, all this fancy schmancy technology, right? So Nellie started to get a little upset She's usually a calm person, but she left. She had to do some extra paperwork before she left. She got to the store a little bit late. There was traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So she needs to get home, to boil the water, drop the pasta in the water. She's getting a little upset. And she usually doesn't get very upset. But today, she did. And so she mumbled something under her breath. What did she mumble? Hurry up. But she said it like this. Hurry up, like this. And the person who was using their phone looked at her, scoffed, and finished paying. But what Nellie didn't know, the cashier thought that Nellie was talking to the cashier. And so this new cashier is his first day. It's that cashier in training. And so he thought that Nellie was telling him to hurry up. So he got a little more upset, and he was kind of flustered. So when Nellie came through, he dropped the pasta sauce and couldn't scan it right away. Finally made it through. But it took maybe 3 to 4 minutes longer than it should have. So Nellie is pretty upset. So she gets in the car, she finally gets to the parking lot, gets in the car, and she backs up. And as she throws her car in reverse, she accidentally kisses a vehicle that was next to her. Let's say it's a pickup truck. She's a good, upstanding individual, so she gets out of the car, looks, no damage, so we're good to go, right? So Nellie gets in the car, drives home. About 10 minutes later, the person who was in Vaughn's to buy whatever they were buying comes out, and he sees his new pickup truck, and just because of where he was standing, and the sunlight hitting the angle of the car, of the truck, he sees this little tiny, let's say 18-inch little kiss along the side. He is upset. He gets in the car, throws it in reverse, gets on the highway, starts going fast, and he cuts someone off. The person who gets cut off gets upset. What's going on? Maybe does some fancy gesture with his or her hands. Drives home, and this woman who just got cut off by this big truck is upset. Comes to the door, opens the door, and this little tiny dog runs towards her. And what does the woman do? Okay. Kicks the dog. The dog is not used to, or at least not very often, treated this way. So the dog runs outside to the backyard. And one of the children is upset that the dog got kicked, goes out to try and console the dog, but the dog digs underneath the fence and escapes and goes towards a park. So the dog is running towards the park, and there's some people playing at the park, and the dog runs up, and what happens? Okay, bites somebody. Let's say bites a child who, there's a dog coming, doesn't really understand how to negotiate the social contract with dogs, tries to pet it, dog doesn't want it, grabs its tail, dog bites the child. The parents, who are helicopter parents, come in, whisk the child away. Are you okay? The child is crying, has a little bite mark on their wrist. The parents try and shoo the dog away. Parents take the child home. Child seems okay. The next morning, the child has a fever. The parents are like, we should probably take the child to the hospital. Take the child to the hospital, urgent care, and who is there to meet the child? Nellie. Okay, so we've heard this story before, it sounds like. So, whose fault is it? It's Nellie's fault. Satan. Okay. Safe answer, right? Which individual mentioned in the story, whose fault is it? Each? Ooh. But Nellie's parents, their fault for caring for their child? Is it the dog's fault? The dog wasn't trying to get kicked. The person who had the truck, they weren't trying to get their car scraped. The cashier wasn't trying to get chided for going too slow. Whose fault was it? It's a chain of reaction, and this is how anxiety works in our lives. Anxiety is passed from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's a chain reaction. Anxiety is passed from person to person to person. And I don't mean just anxious, like frenetic anxiousness. Anxiety could be the form of being overwhelmed, or sad and weepy, or really angry. Anxiety can manifest itself in many different ways. So anxiety is like a hot potato that's passed from person to person to person. Wouldn't bored with this idea? Hopefully, because we'll be talking about it the rest of the time. As I'm talking, I'll have some pictures up here. They're called memes. So this is me before I learned about triangles, and I saw a butterfly that is 100% someone else's issue, and I'll ask myself, is this my problem to fix? This is the question we'll be kind of pursuing all day today. When someone else has a challenge, is that automatically my problem to fix? something we'll be exploring. It ran in my family until it ran into me. This is an opportunity for you to learn some new ideas, some new concepts. I'm hoping to stretch your brain a little bit, and then hopefully you'll be able to apply it to your lives. I'm hoping everybody got one of these. If you did not, please raise your hand and we can get you one of these. This will hopefully help you follow along. There's one hand over here. Another hand over there. Great. Great. So the purpose of this two-part triangle presentation is to introduce you to the formation. There's another one hand over here as well. Formation, attributes, and dynamics of relational triangles in order to help you more adaptively navigate your own triangles in your relationships and not inadvertently take on the distress of other people's unresolved tension. In the story we told about Nellie, everybody had tension, and it was manifested in different ways, even to a dog and then back to a human. This anxiety can pass amongst the creatures in our system, so we need to be aware that this is what's happening in our daily lives. We are often receiving anxiety and often passing on anxiety. We are often brokers of anxiety in our relationships. But we don't have to always do this. I'm hoping to teach you some concepts so we can navigate a new way in our relationship. So by the end of the seminar, hopefully you will be able to understand the formation, attributes, and dynamics of relational triangles. You recognize your role and position in each triangle. And then later on this afternoon, we'll talk about how a triangle can be unstable or stable and how you can detriangulate yourself from different triangles. That's our plan today. Look at this cute picture. Let's say these are twins. One of them is helping to feed the other person, right? What else do you notice? One is letting the other help them. Good. Now, this could usually be seen as cute. Oh, how cute. They're helping each other. And this is usually something we want to foster in the younger kiddos. We want them to be able to help each other, to be kind and gracious, right? What else do you see happening? Maybe it started the food fight, right? There's a little bit of messiness, right? Both of them have some messiness around their lips. Looks like it could be dragon fruit or some other, could be beets maybe, but it's leaving a stain around the lips, right? Good. What else do we see happening? Yes? One is directing the action, right? Good. Looks like one person is in charge of feeding everybody at the table. Take care of themselves and take care of other people. Good. What else is happening? What? Oh, right now, one is eating. This is a snapshot in time. There's a whole bunch of things we don't know about this relationship. But if this sort of dynamic continues, these look like they might be a year and a half, maybe 2, barely 2. But if this continues to age 5, 6, 7, how are we going to feel about this if we have a 7-year-old feeding his 7-year-old twin every meal? Not good? Why not? It's so cute right now. Why don't we like it later? He may not be feeding him when he's, but let's say this same pattern continues, where the 7-year-old is feeding his 7-year-old twin. Why wouldn't we want that? He would be becoming dependent on his brother. The one on the left would start to develop this dependence on the person on the right. But isn't this a nice relationship, a nice symbiotic relationship? One person likes to help, and one person likes to be helped, so they're both happy, right? Yeah.
I believe the boy that's feeding the other boy would be creating learned helplessness.
Perhaps. The person on the right-hand side might be like, my job is to ask someone to solve my food problems, and the person on the left is, my job is to help other people solve their problems. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She's using Velcro shoes right now, which is totally developmentally appropriate. But we're going to start transitioning to the laces, the dreaded laces. It takes a lot of fine motor skills to tie, whether you do like the rabbit around the scoop and down the hole, or 2 bows that hug each other, whatever it is, it takes a lot of work to figure out how to tie your shoes, right? Now, I have a couple options. As a parent, I can say, I'm never going to help you, we're transitioning to laces, and I'm not going to help at all. Sink or swim, that's one option. Another option is, oh, I'm sorry you have laces, let me tie them for you every single time. So for the next 10 years, my daughter is 16, she's a sophomore in high school, and she calls me, Dad, I got done with PE class. Will you please come tie my shoes for me? So I have to leave work at Loma Linda, drive over there to rescue her, to tie her shoes, because I never let her struggle. There are times where it is acceptable to allow people to struggle. And one of the things I'm talking about today is how do we know whether it's our job to force feed other people to solve their problems for them or allow them to struggle? That's one of the tricky things we have to navigate, and hopefully you'll be thinking about this as we continue. So this is me talking as a family life educator, not as a marriage and family therapist, because when it comes to issues of safety in your own lives, there's a million things I don't know about your own life. And when it comes to someone's safety or well-being, some of these ideas might shift. But in general, I'm talking to you about concepts, and it's your responsibility to apply these concepts to your lives. I'll have many examples in here, but just letting you know, if it comes to issues of safety, you might need to approach this a little bit differently. What we don't want to do is be the hero coming to the rescue at the top and accepting other people's invitation to get involved in their unresolved conflict, and then having no more emotional capacity to deal with my own stuff. If I spend all my energy helping other people, I don't have very much energy for myself. If you're here this morning, Kurt asked me about my life and how I came to where I'm at right now, and there was a period of 5 years I moved 6 times. So I just got used to putting my flattened cardboard boxes under my bed because I was planning to move again in 9 months. I strongly dislike moving. It is unpleasant. You know what I like to do? I like to help other people move. Because when I go over to their house, I open up a box, I put all their junk in the box, close it up, tape it up, move to the garage, I go on to the next box. When it's my own stuff, do I want to keep this plate or should I not keep this plate? Do I like this book? Should I give this book away? Am I ever going to wear this sweater again? So many little decisions go into packing my own stuff. It's so much more emotionally draining. It's so much easier to pack up and deal with other people's belongings because they're not mine. Similarly, sometimes it feels easier to help other people with their problems because they're not my problems. We might even feel more confident helping other people with their problems, whereas when it's our own stuff, it's heavier. But we need to think carefully and wisely about whose problems we actually get involved in. Before I came here, where's my water bottle? I talked with Elijah, and we had a meeting for about an hour in his office, and I asked questions about this church family. What were some of the things that this church family struggled with? What were some of the things this church family liked to talk about? And one of the first things he says, oh yes, if you talk about this topic, everybody wants to hear about this. So we're going to test this out. I want you to think about families. I want you to think about what is your favorite thing to think about, or what you want to hear most about families. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it, and we're going to say that topic at the very same time and see if we're on the same page. Ready? Just think about what's your favorite thing to talk about or think about when it comes to families. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and after 1, we're all going to say that topic. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Elijah, you told me they wanted to talk about in-laws. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about in-laws this morning to begin with. We're going to talk about the story of Jacob. So this is a famous story of Jacob who's deceiving his father. Very famous story. Now it came about, Isaac was old, his eyes were too dim. He called his older son, his favorite son, Esau, to him and said, my son. And he said to him, here I am. Then Isaac said, behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. And he sends him on this quest to go get some food, bring it back so he can bless him. Now Rebekah was listening, and Rebekah heard this. So she goes to her favorite son, Jacob, behold, I have this plan. Listen to my plan, and we're going to get what we want. Have you heard this story before? Okay, so why is Rebekah doing this? Why is she being the puppet master in the background trying to facilitate this? Anyone know? What? She's a woman. Okay, that's one explanation. A little slippery there. Okay, what's another explanation? So she had an agenda, a little less slippery. She had an agenda. What else?
God had already told her the younger would serve the older, and so she thought she would help facilitate that when he was going to give it to the older one.
I don't have an agenda. I'm just facilitating this. God already told me that the older would serve the younger. Good. One over here. Yeah. The result of not getting what I want would be disastrous for her. Yes. Yes. Why would this potentially be disastrous for her? Anyone know? If she can't get her favorite son to receive the blessing, why could this be bad news for her? Because her non-favorite son is going to have the blessing. Right now, at this point in the story, Jacob has already swindled his brother Esau out of the birthright. So Jacob has the birthright, of the firstborn birthright. If he can just get the blessing, for all intents and purposes, he would become the firstborn of the family. He would have the birthright and the blessing, and then Rebekah could safely be with Jacob and live out the rest of her days with her favorite son, instead of being forced to the whims and wills of her non-favorite son. But there's something else at play here. Anyone know what it is? He would get more of the inheritance. Yep. So, control, wanting some control, but there's another reason in the background that most of us don't talk about. What's driving Rebekah to do this? Favoritism, absolutely. Now, this story starts in chapter 27. Now, in the original Hebrew Bible, there were not these fancy numbers that were put in. These chapter breaks and the verses are put in arbitrarily later. Let's look at this is where we think the story starts. Let's go back a few verses to find out where the story actually starts. The two previous verses leading up to Genesis 27, verse 1. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, sweet name if you're considering any names, Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. This is the beginning of the story. Rebekah did not like her two new daughters-in-law, and she's trying to find a way out of it. Let's look at the rest of the story. So Esau, after this deception, Esau found out about it, and Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, look, in one sentence, one line, this is what Esau says: the days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob. Very clear, very direct. But notice what Rebekah does. She amplifies this one verse and makes it into about 6 verses. Listen to this. So when the words of her elder son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she sent word and called her younger son Jacob and said to him, behold, she makes a big deal about it. Behold, listen to me, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you and in planning to kill you. She could have stopped there, but she needs to amplify this. Now then, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides. Remember, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send word to you and get you from there. Why should I lose you both in one day? So she amplifies this issue. Then she turns to her husband. It says to Isaac, Isaac, I am tired of living because of the daughters of Heth, my daughters-in-law. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth also, like these from the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? She's really interested in getting some different daughters-in-law, right? From her family, where Laban is. She wants to get some daughters that are in line with her family expectations, because every family has their own rules. And she wants to get a daughter-in-law that comes from her family that she can agree with, that is more agreeable. So then Isaac turns to Jacob and blessed him and commanded him, saying to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Paddan-aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and from there take to yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Very specific. All of this deception is because Rebekah did not like her daughters-in-law. Now, did Rebekah deal with this, with her issues with her daughters-in-law, in a direct manner? No, she goes in a very roundabout, creative way. And because of this, she never sees her favorite son ever again. What she could have done, she could have prayed about it at the bottom. She could have applied the Matthew 18 principle of dealing with her daughters-in-law. She could have agreed to disagree. She could have held a family meeting. Instead, she convinced her favorite son to dress up in a goat skin to swindle the blessing from her legally blind husband and then scare Jacob out of town to obtain an approved wife from her family back in Padamaran. This is a very convoluted scheme, trying to pull all of this off. So notice, she hears something, she amplifies it, and she tries to get someone else to do something. This is a classic triangle. She did not deal with her daughters-in-law directly. So even in this family, there can be some tension between in-laws. Every behavior is a symptom of the system. And different people have different behaviors because they come from different systems. And sometimes two different systems clash. And that's what Rebecca was experiencing. She was clashing with her daughters-in-law because they were from a different culture. There was some prejudice and some discrimination against them because they were from the Hittite clans. And she wanted someone from her own clan. She didn't want to be intermarrying. She didn't want to deal with all that. She wants someone that she approves. Why was she doing all this? Why was she pulling these strings? I think she learned how to do this in her own family of origin. Let's look at Rebecca's family in Genesis 24. So this is the story when the servant comes in search of a wife for Isaac. So he gets a call from Abraham, this quest to go and try and find a wife for the promise on Isaac. And he goes there, and Rebecca feeds waters the camels. When the camels had finished drinking, the man, that's the servant, took a gold ring weighing half a shekel and 2 bracelets for her wrists weighing 10 shekels in gold. And Abraham's servant said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness for his trustworthiness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers." Then the young woman, that's Rebecca, ran to her mother's household. Interesting. Usually this is a patriarchal family, but she runs to her mother's household. Now Rebecca had a brother whose name was Laban, and he's a slimy rat. We know him, right? And Laban ran outside to meet the man at the spring. And when he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and he heard the words of his sister Rebecca saying, "This is what the man said to me," he went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. What's happening here? The narrator is telling us that Laban sees the gold, runs out to see the man, and he sees this fleet of BMWs, the camels, because camels are much more valuable for traveling because they don't need to stop for water as often. He sees these fleet of BMWs and his eyes goes big, boom, riches, gold, resources. And we know what Laban is interested in. And he said, "Come in, blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside since I've prepared the house and the place for your BMWs in my garage?" So the man entered the house, and Laban first attended to the BMWs, attended to the camels, and gave straw and fed. Again, he's just looking at these BMWs. He can't take his eyes off of them. He's really interested in what the servant has, not who the servant is. He's really interested in this. And we see this later on when he takes advantage of Jacob, right? So this is what Laban is. This is what he's about. And the water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Later on in the story, Laban and Bethuel. Bethuel is the father of Laban and Rebekah. This is the only time that Bethuel is mentioned. This is the only time that Bethuel speaks in this whole story. The father doesn't speak very much. In fact, the household is referred to as the mother's household. And Laban and Bethuel speak together. The matter has come from the Lord, so we cannot speak to you good or bad. Here's Rebekah before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. And the servant brought out more goods, silver and articles of gold and garments, and gave them to Rebekah, and also gave precious things to her brother and her mother, but not to the father. Then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. Then when he got up in the morning, he said, "Send me away to my master." But her brother, that's Rebekah's brother, Laban, and her mother, who's talking again, said, "Let the young woman stay with us a few days, say 10. Afterwards she may go." However, he said to them, "Do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away so I may go to my master." And they, the mother and the brother said, "We will call the young woman and ask her." Then the brother and the mother called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." So they, the brother and the mother, sent away their sister Rebekah and her nurse with Abraham's servant and his men. So who's calling the shots in the family? Mom is making the decisions, right? She's able to make the decisions. The father is more of a figurehead in this particular family. So you can imagine Rebecca growing up in a family where mom and brother help call the shots. And now she's in a relationship with Isaac, and she's thinking, wow, I don't get along with my daughters-in-law. I'm going to help call the shots in the family and help make some decisions. So she convinces her favorite son to wear goat skin, to go and deceive his father, basically elder abuse, to get the blessing so that her son will be the eldest born son in all intents and purposes, but then he has to run away and she never sees him again. Every behavior is a symptom of the system. And this skill of detriangulation is probably the most important skill in family systems therapy, and for me personally in my own life, the most important skill to help me not receive extra anxiety from other people around me. I use this in my professional life. I use this in my personal life. And I'm hoping you'll be able to use this directly applicable to your own lives. For those of you who like math, if you want to figure out how many triangles are in the room, you would use this formula. If there's 3 people in the room, there's 1 triangle. If there's 4 people in the room, there are 4 triangles. 5 people in the room, there are 10 triangles. If there are 50 people in the room, there's almost 20,000 possible triangles. You have a church of 300 people, there's 4.5 million possible triangles. We are in many different triangles simultaneously right now, and here at church, as well as in our own lives. So let's talk about 4 different family experiences. 4 different families and how triangles might show up in that family. So quick scenarios. On the left-hand side, we have 2 people down below. There's some tension between them. And whenever a dyad is experiencing tension, they can become more harmonious by the addition of a third party. What does that mean? Let's say there are 2 people in Sabbath school that disagree theologically about something. We don't see the world of the Bible in the same way. But there's someone that comes to attend Sabbath school that is drinking coffee. And we can all agree that coffee is bad, right? So all of a sudden, even though they disagree theologically and their worldviews are different, they see that person drinking coffee. We both agree that that coffee drinker is bad. And all of a sudden, they get along because they have a common enemy. On the right-hand side, we have a harmonious dyad. Let's say there's 2 individuals, and they experience they can experience tension by the addition of a third party. Let's say there's 2 people, let's say a male and a female, and they have a child. But before they had a child, they're getting along fine. But as soon as the child comes along, all of a sudden, all their direction is focused toward the child, and they allow their romantic relationship to fall by the wayside. So what this means is the addition of a third party, whether it's someone drinking coffee or a baby, can change the way 2 people interact with one another. Similarly, there's a big football game on this weekend, right? 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. These 2 neighbors, on the left-hand side is a Kansas City Chiefs fan, right-hand side 49er fan. They do not get along while the game is going. They're cheering for their own team. But as soon as the game is done, they go back to being good neighbors. So, a dyad that experiences tension can become harmonious by the removal of a third party. Likewise, on the right-hand side, let's say we have 2 powerful personalities down below, and they are kept in check because there is a really good facilitator in the group and is able to manage all the powerful personalities. But when that facilitator has to move to West Virginia, all of a sudden these 2 people start to get a little bit feisty, and there's conflict between them. So even when there's a harmonious dyad, they can start to experience tension with the removal of a third party. So why am I going through all this? It's because regardless of whether there's tension between 2 people or no tension between 2 people, the addition or the removal of a third party can change the way that these 2 people interact. When there's a baby that comes into the family, that changes the family dynamics. When someone passes away, that changes the family dynamics. When there's a dog that's introduced to the family, that changes the family dynamics. When there's a bird that flies into the sanctuary, that changes the way that we interact. When there's a waiter that comes to our table, that changes our interaction. When there's a TV show on, or when someone is in an addiction, or they pursue a career, or a hobby, all those things can change the way that two people interact. So I want you to entertain a paradigm shift. Whether or not you agree with me, I want you to hold this in your mind as we move forward. Relationships are about threes, not twos. Relationships are fundamentally about threes, not twos. And if you believe that relationships are just about twos, you're missing a lot of the context that could be influencing and affecting the relationship between those two people. That's really what triangles are about. How do we understand what the different parties or people or hobbies or addictions or pursuits or dreams that are out there that are affecting the relationship between two different people? Because triangles are the basic building blocks of emotional systems. Do we have any engineers or construction workers here? Yeah? Can we get the microphone over there, please? Great. Can you please tell us about triangles?
When you build a house and you're going to have a roof, you want roof trusses.
Why?
They're all based on triangles because a triangle is very square. It's putting pressure on each point, equal pressure.
Ah, and why is that important?
It gives strength.
Good. So it gives equal pressure to the other points. So when there's pressure on the top, if there's a triangle, it can disperse that pressure to the other points. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's a very strong structure. Is that correct? Same way it works in relationships. What happens is one person experiences anxiety, and they try and share that anxiety with other people in the triangle to disperse that anxiety onto others, and that creates a more stable structure. Same sort of idea when it comes to relationships. Relational triangles are a three-person emotional configuration. When one relationship gets intertwined with the addition of a third party, object, job, pet, substance, etc., and you can have interlocking triangles. When some anxiety is too much for one triangle to handle, they will pass on that anxiety to another triangle, and that anxiety overflows to another person. We could have lots of interlocking triangles here. So anxiety is passed around the system. So how are triangles created in the first place? There are two people who get along or not, and when there's too much tension between them, and that tension, anxiety, has grown beyond what these two people can carry, they try and rope in a third person, another person to help them carry the load. So when there's distress in the dyad, and I want to pass my anxiety down the line, I find someone who can be my ally, a listening ear, or someone that I can blame for whatever's happening. So an ally or a scapegoat. Really what happens is, this is a multi-level modeling scheme to pass anxiety off to other people. Because people don't like being anxious. If there's too much anxiety, the purpose of my anxiety is to get me activated, and I don't want to be activated. So I want to get rid of my anxiety so that I can feel calmer. That's what is driving all of this. Nobody likes to be anxious. We will want to find some other people to disperse some of the pressure onto other points of the triangle. Here's the challenge. If you get triangled into someone else's business, to the extent that you become responsible for, or to try to change the relationship between two other people, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. I'll read that again. To the extent that you become responsible for, or try to change the relationship between two others, try and fix their problem, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. The more you get involved, you will start to experience what they have going on between them. Triangulation is an anxiety management strategy. Try and get some other people to come in, recruiting other people to come and help me manage my own anxiety. Really, this relies on other people's willingness to get involved in someone else's unresolved distress. And in doing so, it helps me feel calmer. A couple years ago, I tried to get my youngest daughter interested in gardening. So we went to Home Depot and spent way too much money buying potter plants and little starter plants and like the sod or whatever it is supposed to put in and some fertilizer. And I was wearing gloves and she was wearing gloves. And by the end, our gloves were really muddy. I will often get muddy gloves when I'm in the garden. Rarely will the garden become glovey. Usually my gloves become muddy. This is what happens when we try and reach in to help other people. We usually get dirty. We experience the anxiety of that unresolved tension. So if you've ever done me wrong, just know that my mom knows, and she doesn't like you. Even though you don't know that I've shared our interaction with my mom, she knows, and she has formed an opinion about you. And now we have a triangle. You, me, and my mom. And my mom is on my side. And we see you as the common enemy. That's a triangle. Anxiety is like a hot potato. We don't want to touch the potato for too long. When my daughter gets out of swim lessons during the summer and she climbs up onto the hot cement, she starts doing this. Why? Her feet are hot. She doesn't want to touch the hot concrete for too long. Same thing with a hot potato, same thing with anxiety. We don't want to hold anxiety for too long. We want to pass it on to other people. And this is a social contract. We all agree. We just pass anxiety around. Most people in relationships are behaving in response to anxieties rather than each other. My own anxiety about the situation, that's what's driving my behavior. I tell myself it's the other person, but it's really my anxiety about the situation that is driving my behavior. Triangling is both an emotional process and an anxiety binding process that just shifts anxiety around the system, around the triangle. What happens is some triangles feel stable, others feel unstable, and we'll talk about this afternoon. So some feel stable, they don't want to change. Others feel wonky and unstable. Anxiety is transferable, it's contagious, and there can be this domino effect, just like our story with Nurse Nellie, right? There was this domino effect of passing anxiety all the way around the circle, and it came back to bite her, right? She got to see this child who was bit by the dog, who was kicked by the person, who was cut up by the truck driver, who had their car scraped because Nellie was upset because the person in front of her had taken too long. So there's this big circle. Anxiety is passed around. And triangles are forever. What does this mean? Sometimes we think that if someone moves away or passes away or leaves, that we will have no more problems with them. That's not the case. Just because someone passes away, whatever tension they had with other people gets redistributed amongst the rest of the remaining family members. Anxiety doesn't just evaporate. Imagine there's this, let's say there's this 17-year-old boy who lives in Yucaipa, and he does not like his parents. His parents are way too strict. His parents say he has to be inside the house by 10 p.m., and all of his friends can stay out till 12. Why does he have to come in 2 hours earlier when his friends get to have 2 more hours of fun? So he gets really upset, and he takes his allowance jar, and he takes a fistful of money, and he takes some public transit over to Amtrak station and takes a train all the way across the country to Orlando, Florida, where his aunt and uncle live. So he leaves home. He runs away from home. And he lands at his aunt and uncle's house, and his aunt and uncle take care of him. So the tension he had with his parents, has that disappeared with his geographic relocation? I should see a lot of shaking heads. The tension does not disappear. It's just latent. It's just stuffed underneath the rug. How do we know? Because when his parents come to visit for Thanksgiving, he's going to be anxious about that. His parents, who he ran away from, are coming to visit in Thanksgiving just a few months. So that tension has not disappeared. He's just pretending it doesn't exist. Even though he left the family, the anxiety, the tension he had with other people goes with him. And if for some reason he passes away, we wouldn't want that to happen, all the anxiety he had with his parents are going to experience this guilt, feel sad about this, so the anxiety still is present in the family system. It does not disappear. What does this mean? It means the anxiety we experience is old because it's been passed down from generation to generation, from triangle to triangle. and we're dealing with stuff that people have been passed down to us. It's old. The stuff we deal with is not new. And a lot of the stress we deal with isn't even necessarily our stuff to deal with. It's other people sending us their hot potatoes. So I'm hoping that after the end of this seminar, you're going to be smarter about which hot potatoes are yours and which hot potatoes have someone else's name on it. Most people spend their time dealing with other people's problems instead of working on their own problems, because it's easier to do, because it's at arm's distance. You're not quite as attached. When it's your own problems, you have to deal with the fallout. You have to deal with your own results. Triangulation is actually really helpful for families. It helps stabilize the situation. We can spread the anxiety amongst us, and we can experience more stability. It's helpful for families, helpful for churches, but the more this happens in family or church, the less likely the individuals in the family or the individuals in the church are able to manage their own distress. And they will become reliant on other people to take the hot potatoes whenever they have them. They'll become reliant on other people to receive their anxiety. And they're less able to discern their own values, feelings, and reactivity as distinct from others. And we become this big mass of anxiety. So we're going to start depending on other people to solve our problems, depending on other people to carry our anxiety. Just like at the very beginning, we have those two twins. That could be good in a pinch, but if this becomes the normal routine, this can be maladaptive and not be good for certain people. Now, obviously, there are different support needs that different people need, right? So accounting for those support needs, allowing them to do the things that they can do, and supporting them for the things they can't do, that's different. But when we can all potentially handle our own anxiety, and we just shuffle that off onto other people to manage, that's where the challenge comes in. Because we don't really want to deal with our hot potatoes. Anyone juggle in here? No jugglers. Yes, a juggler? If I had some racket balls, would someone want to come up here and juggle them for me? No, okay, no takers. Okay. So on the left-hand side, we have a juggler. He looks like he's a juggler. He has a hat, he has a vest, and some striped pants. He looks like a juggler, professional juggler. He has 3 batons in the air and 1 on his hip. Judging by how he looks and how he's focused, I bet he could juggle all 4 of those batons if he wanted to. On the right-hand side, we have 3 people juggling. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 batons between the 3 of them. Notice how these 3 people can have many more batons in the air compared to 1 person. It's the same sort of thing when there's a group of people working together, a group of triangles, always sharing our hot potatoes amongst each other. But sometimes we're dealing with more dangerous things. Left-hand side, we have this individual juggling chainsaws. I would not recommend this at home. On the right-hand side, we have people standing on other people's shoulders to juggle, a much more precarious position. And when we are always relying on other people to throw the batons with us, to throw the hot potatoes back and forth, we can have many more hot potatoes in the air, but when all comes crashing down, more people are likely to get hurt. So in highly anxious and polarized families and churches, it becomes more difficult for the clinician, that would be Bryan, to resist engaging in the triangle. In highly anxious and polarized churches, it becomes more difficult for the pastor to resist engaging in the triangle. And when that happens, objectivity is lost and clinical or pastoral intention is compromised. But it's not just me as a clinician or Elijah or Cliff as the pastor. Any relationships in highly anxious and polarized families, it becomes more difficult for me to resist engaging in other people's stuff. It's so enticing. Yes?
You've heard the phrase, get the monkey off my back type of thing. I want you to solve my problem. If I don't like it that somebody on the platform at church doesn't wear socks, I want the pastor to go to that person and tell him because
Yes.
I have the problem.
Yes, yes. Let's get someone who I know has some power to go and solve the problem for me. Absolutely. And that's a nice, clean way to take care of things, right?
Is that a triangle?
That's a triangle, absolutely. Because you don't like that I am showing my ankles, and you want to appeal to someone who has authority to come and tell me to change my dress. That's a triangle right here. Even though I may never know he has a problem with me because he's not dealing with me directly. Very indirect. So are they helpless? Or do you just want to feel needed? Because I'm in the helping profession. I like helping people. It feels good to help people, right? When you know that you're a good friend, a good family member, it feels good to help other people. And so we tell ourselves stories about why we must continue to participate in these triangles. We tell ourselves things like, well, they need me, right? They need my help specifically. I'm their pastor. I'm their friend. I'm their brother. I'm their sister. I'm their aunt. I'm their niece. I'm their mom. I'm their dad. I'm their family member. I'm their friend. It's my job. It's my role. It's my responsibility. I know what to do. I've been in their shoes before. I know exactly what to do to solve their problem. I'm a natural rescuer. I'm a hero. I'm a peacemaker. I'm a helper. I just like helping people. I know how to fix this. I can take one for the team. All of these are justifications that we tell ourselves why we are supposed to go and help other people tie their shoes. Good thing they called me. I'm a neutral party and a great listener. Now, when I talk to the person on your behalf, I'll need to hear their side of the story too. Blessed to be the middleman. And the more you get involved in other people's unresolved distress, the more you'll experience the distress of that relationship. Sometimes it's other people spinning the story for us because they want us to relieve them of their hot potatoes. They might say things like, "You're such a good listener. You've always been so supportive. I know that you are always there, a nice shoulder to cry on. Nobody understands me like you do. I can count on you. We need a mediator." Or even, "I'm just worried about so-and-so." Or, "I need your advice on something." All of these are ways to rope you in, to come and help carry their hot potato. But sometimes it feels good to help other people. So there's this push-pull of them wanting to give you hot potatoes and you feeling good when you help them with their hot potatoes, right? Worry is often used as a way to justify gossip and triangulation. I'm worried about so-and-so. Better talk with this person over here. This person heard it. I better talk with this person over here. And we just pass it around the different triangles. So there's some snow on the mountains. Hopefully not snow at our houses. Has anyone ever lived at a place where there's snow like this? Great. You're the experts in the room. Please tell the rest of us, what does this snow feel like? Cold? Crunchy. Ooh, good word. Crunchy. Heavy. So why is this not soft and fluffy snow?
It's been plowed.
It's been plowed. It's been pushed together. It's been compacted. There's a lot of pressure, right? So this is not fun snow to play in, right? I like the word crunchy. That was good. How about this situation? Let's say you have the car here. How are you supposed to get past this big ice boulder is what it is, right? Back up real fast. Right. Funny. I've never heard someone say that, but that is a solution, and that is what some people do in our families, right? We back up real fast, and we'll deal with the consequences later. So even if I was going to take a shovel, it would take quite a bit of work to chip away at this big boulder so that the car could get out. Agreed? Okay. How about this situation? Bottom left. The snow is pushed up to the plow right up to the edge of the garage, so you can't even get into the garage to get your shovel out in the first place. How are you going to get past this? The bottom right, or the top right. This happened in Benton Harbor, Michigan. There was a person who went into this auto parts store that did not like how they were treated by the manager. They left in a huff. This was on the news, on a newspaper. And a few weeks later, one of this person's part-time job was to put a plow in the front of their pickup truck. And they were called to come and clear out a parking lot. It happened to be the parking lot of this auto parts store. So they purposefully pushed all of the snow in the parking lot up to the front door so that patrons would have to step over this crunchy snow just to get inside. Does a plow remove any of the snow? It just pushes it around, right? I live on a cul-de-sac, And if it snowed on my cul-de-sac, I could conceivably get out in the morning, say it snowed 2 inches. I could shovel my driveway and shovel my snow onto my neighbor's driveway. 30 minutes later, my neighbor comes out. Oh, the news said it snowed 2 inches. It looks like there's 4 inches on my driveway. I'm going to shovel it onto my neighbor's driveway. An hour later, third neighbor comes out. Whoa, there's 6 inches of snow. Better get to shoveling and snovel it around. 2 hours later, fourth neighbor comes out. Wow, there's 8 inches of snow on my driveway. It could go all the way around the cul-de-sac. And if the person opposite me was industrious enough, they could take their 16 inches of snow and bring it onto my driveway too, right? This is what happens in our families. We shovel anxiety around. We rarely deal with it because we're mostly concerned with getting the snow off of our driveway, cleaning our plate of anxiety because we want to feel calmer. Right. Can you recall any examples of triangles in the Abraham story? So raise your hand and we'll have the microphone come around and you'll tell me triangles that you remember from the Abraham story. Sarah, Hagar, and Abraham. Boom, triangle. Good. Anyone else? Raise your hand. Oh, good. We'll bring the microphone so we can hear it.
Hagar, Ishmael, Isaac.
Good. Another triangle. Excellent. Any other triangles? Only 2 triangles in the whole family.
Only 2?
No.
Abraham, Rebecca, and Hagar?
Good. Abraham, Rebecca, and Hagar, because, so let's notice this. This is very interesting. Because Hagar is the mother of his biological child, Ishmael, right? And he sent Hagar and Ishmael, well, because of Sarah, sent Hagar and Ishmael away to the desert. He's still in relationship with this person, even though this person is no longer part of his family, right? And then he's thinking about trying to find a wife, Rebecca, for his son Isaac. So he is still simultaneously in a relationship with Hagar and Rebecca. Just because people leave does not mean the tension they had in the family disappears. Good. You mention any 3 people in the story, that'll be a triangle. Even across generations. Any single group of 3 will become a triangle. But we do not need to participate in triangles in the same way. When we allow ourselves to be roped into other people's challenges, we don't actually remove any anxiety. We just plow it around. We just push it around. And the anxiety becomes compacted and crunchy in the family system. The result is we perpetuate this practice of spreading and pushing and crunching anxiety to and from those we love.
I'd like to understand anxiety again. What is your definition here? Anxiety? I mean, I don't know that I have anxiety from 10 generations ago.
Good. I would say that you do. I would say all of us have anxiety from 10 generations because anything that's unresolved tension in the family is passed down to the next generation. And that family will then pass on that anxiety and the behavior patterns that keep it in the family to the next generation. Have you heard the story about the meatloaf before? Meatloaf story? Okay. There's this granddaughter who is making meatloaf with her family during Christmas. And they make the meatloaf, and they make the meatloaf in the pan, in the bowl, and then they go to put it on the baking pan, and then her mother and her aunt cut off this end and this end of the meatloaf, and they remove it. And she said, "Why do you do that?" "Well, it's the secret family recipe." She said, "But that doesn't make any sense. Why are you cutting off the ends of meatloaf? We've always done it this way." Okay, so she goes to Grandma. "Grandma, why did your daughter, my mom, cut off the ends of the meatloaf?" And the grandmother says, "Well, we've always done it that way." "But that doesn't make any sense. Why would you cut off this perfectly good piece of meatloaf before you bake it? That makes no sense." And the grandmother says, "I don't know. Ask my mom." So the great-grandchild goes and talks to her great-grandmother. "Great-grandmother, why is it that we cut off the ends of the meatloaf before cooking it?" And the great-grandmother says, "What? We cut off the end of the meatloaf. That makes no sense. That's what I'm saying. Why do we do that?" She said, "Oh. When your grandmother my child was growing up, the pan we had was too small for the recipe. So we would make the meatloaf, cut off the edges, and put that in the pan to cook it. And for several generations, people in the family have been removing part of the perfectly good meatloaf because that's just what other people did. So behavior is passed down from generation to generation. Worries, fears, if someone's worried about money, that's often passed down to the next generation. If we're concerned about safety, that's often passed down to the next generation. So we inherit this unresolved tension the previous generations were not able to resolve. So that's passed down from person to person. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it demonstrates itself in behaviors that you don't even know what the anxiety was about.
Correct.
But it demonstrates it in the behaviors that are exhibited.
Correct. Correct. You may know it, you may not know the origin of it, but you are experiencing it in the present day. Good. When you are carrying the anxiety of other people, you're often thinking about it on your own time. If you're spending your own time and energy thinking about other people's stuff, you're starting to carry some of those hot potatoes. So to the extent that you become responsible for or try to change the relationship between two others, the more that you will experience the distress of that relationship. So what happens to the system? People become dependent on others to carry their hot potatoes. Conflict is not managed directly. We go a roundabout way to solve the problems. Nobody assumes responsibility for their own problems because they assume other people are going to come and save them. And anxiety and issues become stuck and frozen in the family. We all know there are certain families that just have a higher level of anxiety compared to other families, right? It's because the anxiety gets stuck and crunchy in that family system. And when this happens, this prevents growth and compromises objectivity. And we get used to it. And we don't even know it's happening. And we end up being brokers of anxiety in our families. Whew, Bryan's been talking a lot. Let's see if we understand the material. I want you to get in groups of like 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, no more than 6. Get in groups of 4 or 5 people, maybe 3, and I want you to try and answer these questions and explain it to your neighbor, Charlie, who is not able to be here today. Explain it to them. What is a triangle? How do they work? Why are triangles not dyads, not 2 people? Why are 3 people the basic building blocks of emotional systems? What are some of the reasons or justifications or narratives for why we willingly participate in triangles? And then what happens to us or the system when we continue to participate in triangles? Go ahead and get in some small groups and try and answer these questions. You might have to move around a little bit, but try and meet people nearby.
are you doing that? What are you doing? Type of thing. I mean, inserting yourself into a situation you can see that they're in. If they come to you for advice, I think it's appropriate to give advice. To say, sweetheart, that's my opinion. I know you, and you asked for my opinion. This is mine. So I know you'll make the good decision. I know you'll make a decision, your own decision. And I think that helps them feel like, okay, mom and dad trust me that I have the ability to cognitively process this, and I like their input, but they trust me with the decision.
All right. Who wants some more time? Raise your hand if you want a little more time. All right. I'm feeling generous. You get another minute.
Yeah, to validate.
All right. Let's tap into the wisdom of the group, Kurt. So raise your hand if you feel like you have a good answer or you heard an answer for someone in your group or a group nearby. What is a triangle and how do they work? Raise your hand high.
Okay, we got a daring one here
Great.
to give
Love
us
it.
an answer.
Instead of a party of two that could probably settle the problem if they talked, they throw somebody else in.
Good.
And to maybe perhaps take their side.
Good. And to spread some of the distress amongst 3 people instead of just 2 people, right?
And is that good or is that bad?
Good question.
Right.
It provides some stability, but if this becomes a pattern for a long period of time, then we are always relying on other people to carry our hot potatoes. During certain situations, this can be good. But similar to these 2 twins, one was feeding the other, if this becomes a pattern over a long period of time, this could be not good for what's happening. Good. Why are triangles, not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems?
I'm thinking it is because there's always somebody else or something else that changes the dynamics of the dyad.
Yes. There's always someone outside of the dyad that is affecting what's happening inside of the dyad. Whether the removal or the addition of, someone is spreading anxiety to us, or we're spreading anxiety to them. It's not just about 2s, it's always about 3s. What are some of the reasons or justifications why we think we need to continue to participate in this brokering of hot potatoes, spreading the anxiety amongst our friends and families? What? Relief. We're seeking relief. Good.
Because it's easier to focus on someone else's problem versus your own.
It's easier to focus on someone else's problem instead of our own. Good. What are some other justifications? Yes?
Is that on?
I don't think that's on. I can't quite hear you, sir.
Is Greg? There you go.
There you go.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Great.
Isn't the third person sometimes used to help solve the problem?
Good. Sometimes, right? But do we always need that third person to solve the problem?
Ideally not.
If we start using that third person as a crutch every single time, we don't actually need that third person to solve the problem. All of a sudden, we're robbing ourselves and other people of the opportunity to learn how to tie their own shoes. Sometimes a third person can absolutely be a stabilizing force. But if that becomes the norm, and we are always dispersing and dispensing and relieving ourselves of the responsibility of dealing with our own distress and always saying, well, I need someone else to help me, that's when it becomes maladaptive, and we're not dealing with our own stuff. We're pushing on to other people.
I have an example here that they said their daughter, when a daughter comes and asks the mom a question, mom's feeling this stress to, provide an answer. When dad steps in, she feels relief, and they can both give advice to their daughter. Is that a triangle?
That's absolutely a triangle.
And what's wrong with it?
Good. Some triangles are healthy, some triangles are not healthy. The bulk of the triangles around us are not healthy because people have this mindset, we're trying to share hot potatoes. And so, even in that situation, I have lots of questions as a clinician. Why does she need to jump in to help? Maybe she can handle it herself. We're not going to spend too much time asking these questions, but most of the time when people are learning how to tie their own shoes, if you can allow them to struggle a little bit and continue to do that, then they can start to deal with it themselves. Later on this afternoon, we'll talk about how to detriangulate ourselves from these triangles. We never remove ourselves completely from the triangles, but we can change the way we operate in these triangles. Because that anxiety is going from daughter to mother to father back to daughter. The anxiety is moving quite a bit. And when the more the anxiety moves and is pushed around, the more likely the anxiety is going to get stuck and crunchy in that family system. Good. What are some other narratives or justifications we tell ourselves or other people tell us why we are supposed to participate in triangles?
I need help.
I need help. Good. I need help, and you're in front of me, and you can help. Please help me. And it feels good to help, right? Good. There's a hand here and a hand over there.
Because sometimes other eyes can view a problem and provide other solutions that you don't see.
Good. We're going to talk about how we detriangulate ourselves, and we think we need someone on the outside to give us solutions, but oftentimes, most people, if they could slow down a little bit, might have some creative ideas to solve their own problems if we just let them wrestle with it a little bit. So we'll talk about that later on this afternoon. Good.
It's also a Christian thing to do.
Good. Thank you. Bless you. What is your name, sir? Stuart? Awesome. It is the Christian thing to do. We are expected to bear each other's burdens. Is that correct? Right? Even Paul talks about that. And I'll address that verse at the end, right? So we've been told, sometimes by other people who want us to carry their hot potatoes, it's the Christian thing to do to help each other. Please help me, right? Then we're in a bind. Oh, I don't want to be non-Christian. I don't want to be un-Christian. I guess I'm supposed to help you carry your hot potatoes whenever you want. Is that what we're supposed to do? We'll talk about it we'll look at that verse. This is hand over here. Right here.
I was just thinking, Jesus told us how to handle problems. If a person offends you, go on to that person one-to-one. That's a dyad. But usually we're too cowardly to do that. Mrs. White says that if we have a problem with somebody and we knew we have to go to that person, the problem would stop right there because we don't want to do it. And so who do we go to? We go running to the pastor. And the problem isn't solved.
Or anyone else that wants to hear about the story, right?
No, or anybody else, But I found that in my experience in this church. Somebody said, "Did you hear what he called me?" Well, did you tell the pastor? Go to the pastor. And why doesn't
Lucky Elijah.
Why didn't that person say, "Did you just call me this?" And settle it then and there, a dyad. But we've got to learn that because otherwise we'll be like that little kid that's getting fed beets that the other little kid doesn't like.
It's harder to deal with things directly. It feels safer to do things in indirect route. Yes.
Yeah, that's just what I was saying too. I want you to take care of my problem. I want you to get that monkey off my back because I think that person just did this, and I don't want to go confront them because I don't have, I guess I don't have the nerve to do that. But I want you to, and that to me was a triangle. Sorry.
Yes. Hand back there.
I was just going to say, sometimes you just need to sleep on it and pray and give it a few days and talk to the person.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking how Jesus, when he helped people, you know, he healed somebody. He didn't pick them up. He told them, rise and go show yourselves to the priest, or take up your bed and walk. So they had to bear their share of their, you know, he gave them the ability to do it, and then they could do it. Yeah.
And what I'm hoping is, after the seminar, you'll be much more savvy at figuring out whose shoes you need to tie and whose people are just complaining about their untied shoes, but they might be able to do it themselves, and thinking about this. Otherwise, you'll be spending all your time bent over moving hot potatoes around. And what happens to the system, or to us, when we continue to participate in triangles in this way? It compromises growth. Awesome. What else does it do? We lose objectivity. Oh, we have a student over here. Anxiety gets stuck and crunchy in the system. And now we are walking on eggshells because nobody wants to deal with the thing that's there. We're spending more emotional energy avoiding the problem than actually dealing with the problem. And this becomes the new status quo. This is the new homeostasis. Good. All right. Awesome. So now let's increase our awareness about how we participate in triangles, and then eventually move towards how we can do things differently. We're going to talk about your role in the triangle, your position in the triangle. Then after that, we'll take a break. This afternoon, we'll come back and talk about stability of the triangle. So your role in the triangle. There are 3 roles you can play. And I've played all 3 of these roles at different points in time. And these 3 roles are not always in every triangle. These are just 3 possible roles we could play. First one, we generate anxiety, we amplify anxiety, and we dampen anxiety. Those are the 3 things we can do in a triangle. Generate, amplify, dampen. And each triangle does not have all these 3 represented. In fact, I can start by generating, and if people aren't listening to me, I'll amplify it so that people really hear me, and then if I'm sick of what's happening, then later on I might try and dampen. In my clinical work, I intentionally generate anxiety, or I try and intentionally amplify anxiety, or I intentionally dampen anxiety. But if you're not a clinician, I strongly recommend you work on dampening the anxiety. We're all pretty good at generating. We're all pretty good at amplifying. What does this mean? The anxiety generator brings their anxiety as their +1. They bring this to the party, say, hey, this is an issue that someone needs to address. Hopefully someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's an issue that needs to be addressed. They bring anxiety. And someone else will amplify the anxiety, make a big deal about it. Just like Rebecca heard Esau say, I'm going to kill my brother, in 1 sentence, and she took 6 sentences to blow it up huge to make sure Jacob really understood that he needed to get out of town. Oh, and go to my brother. Oh, and then go find a wife that I approve of, right? She's amplifying it. The amplifier amplifies it either usually through dismissal or by trying to be a rescuer. What does this mean? Let's say there's a 10-year-old boy who comes home and he goes to his father and he says, Dad, I'm being bullied at school. And the dad says, don't worry about it. Boys will be boys. You only have a few months left of school anyways. Don't be a crybaby. Don't cry about it. So the father is dismissing the concern that the boy has. Do we hear this? And in the father dismissing the boy's concern, it's actually amplifying the boy's anxiety. Because now the boy worked up this courage to finally tell his father, and his father said, don't be a crybaby, don't worry about it, it's not that big of a deal. And now the boy is stuck. What am I supposed to do with this anxiety about being bullied? I don't know who to turn to. So the father's dismissal of the problem actually amplified the anxiety. So the boy goes to his mother. Well, I'll try Mom. Mom, I'm getting bullied at school. What? I'm getting bullied at school. Who is bullying you? Tell me right now, what are their names? In fact, I'm going to call the principal. No, I'm not going to call the principal. Tomorrow, I'm going to march down there to school with you. I'm going to stand outside your door, and you point out who the bullies are. I'm going to see you drop them off. I'm going to go talk to those parents, and I'm going to solve this problem right now. Let's talk to your teacher. Let's get a parent-teacher conference going on so that our whole family, because you should not be bullied. This mother is also amplifying the anxiety by making a huge deal out of it, right? In both situations, either dismissal or trying to jump in to rescue the person, this boy's anxiety is amplified. Luckily, Grandpa is at home. Boy goes to Grandpa. Pops, I try to talk to Mom, try to talk to Dad. I'm getting bullied at school. And Grandpa goes, oh no. I'm so sorry. Come here. Sit next to me. So you're getting bullied at school, huh? The boy starts to cry. Yeah, I'm getting bullied at school. People are making fun of what I'm wearing or what I'm saying. They don't like my haircut. Oh, I'm so sorry. That sounds so hard. Come here. Sit next to me. Come here. You know that I love you? I'm here with you. Tell me more about this. And this grandpa is allowing this anxiety to come to his space. He's not reacting to it. He's not dismissing it. He's not jumping into rescue. He's creating this cool, calm, collective space so the anxiety can dampen a little bit. Because how we react to anxiety definitely changes the way the anxiety moves around the triangle. These are often subconscious processes. We're not even aware that we're generating. We're not aware that we are amplifying. Only dampening is something that we do intentionally by trying to be this non-anxious presence. When there's a stressful moment, when it's met with more stress, it can be amplified and get bigger and bigger and bigger. But when there's a calming presence, that stressful anxiety can slowly become a little bit more manageable. So out of Mom, Dad, and Grandpa, which person do you think the boy liked to talk with the most? Grandpa. Because there's a big difference in each person's reaction to that anxiety. Why are you dragging all this negativity into this triangle? Because it needed to be brought to your attention. You know I can't resist making mountains out of your molehills. This isn't even my molehill. I don't care whose it was because it's mine now. And all of a sudden, we don't even know whose hot potatoes we're handling. We just know we have a bunch of them. So we're going to pass them off to other people to help us handle it. So, anxiety generator, amplifier, dampener. Last thing we'll talk about is the position. This is really easy. You are either the outsider or you're the insider. If you are the outsider, it's not your issue. If you're the insider, it is your issue. So these two people who have this tension, if there's tension between person A and B, they really want someone else to join their triangle so they can disperse their anxiety onto someone else. And what happens is these two people become more anxiously activated to pull in this third person, and this outsider at the top gets roped into their distress. And they try and convince the outsider, it's your job, it's your responsibility, you have a specific point of view that we need, come and join us in this triangle, please come in, there's room at the table. But the outsider does not need to join the insiders when it's the insider's issue. It's the insider's responsibility to address the problem, not always the outsider. Sometimes there are insiders who believe it's not their problem, and that's a bigger problem. When P or Q believe it's not their issue, when it clearly is, that's an even bigger problem. So if you can recognize if you're on the outside of the triangle being brought in, or if you're on the inside of the triangle, in the midst of the conflict, in the midst of these hot potatoes, and you're trying to bring someone else in, that's super important for understanding. Because if you're on the outside, it may not be your responsibility to jump into the mix to get muddy, because it's not your issue to begin with. It's actually better to be that odd person out. This might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but if it's not your issue, you're allowed to stay on the outside. Again, if it's not your issue. If it is your issue, and you're actually an insider, you might actually have a responsibility to address the problem, instead of pretending like it's not your issue. So stay on the outside of their business, yeah.
does the person that's on the outside, the two that are on the inside, always invite another person if they believe that that person will be on their side?
Correct. Or they will blame T for their problems. And all of a sudden, P and Q say, yeah, this person's at fault. And now P and Q start to get along because they have a common enemy. So sometimes we point out other people as a scapegoat to redirect our anxiety towards them. So they may not be an ally, they're a scapegoat. There's a hand back here.
Brian, quick question. Say I play the role of T, right?
Uh-huh.
But I have a relationship with Q,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore P sees me as a problem. Could I switch out with Z? Because say that the situation is complicated, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's a perceived tension
Uh-huh.
with one of the parties because I have a positive relationship with another party.
Right.
Is it best for me to remove and have someone else look at it to make sure that it's more objective?
Good. So it's not T's responsibility to find a replacement for T. It's their responsibility to go like, I'm an outsider here. I'm just going to let you two tie your own shoes. It may not be my job, instead of, I can help you by bringing in Z. Here's my friend Z. T and Z are both here to help you. Now we have more people coming into the mix. Does that make sense? So if you're on the outside, again, if there's issues of safety or well-being, this might be a little bit different, right? But if it's not issue of safety, well-being, you do not have to be roped into other people's stuff. Some people get their jollies out of getting in other people's business. They like sharing it. They like being a broker of anxiety. They like being in the know what the new hot potatoes are and pass it on to other people. We don't have to do that. So, real quick, let's meet together. Small groups of 3, 4, and 5. Try to answer these questions. What is the difference between a generator, amplifier, and dampener? Does a triangle always have these 3 roles represented? And then what's the difference between the insider versus the outsider position, and which position is generally preferable? So get in your small groups again, try and answer these questions.
Whose problem is it? But you should agree with me, right? Because it's a biblical thing, right? I mean, isn't that how we do it? I don't think that somebody should be up front wearing down to here and up to here and high heels with jewelry. Okay, I don't think that's appropriate. Whose problem is it? But I believe that you, if you're a good Christian, you'd agree with me. Okay, so I'm the generator. I think that's a problem. And I want to get enough people. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, in fact, I think we should be doing, and I think we should be even more strict on the other person too. And that's the what? The amplifier? You don't know the circumstances. It just happened to me. My daughter-in-law came from Hollywood, just starting to come to church, and we invited her in. We asked, "Do you sing?" "Oh yeah, I sing." So we said, "Great, we'll have you do special music for us." This is a small church like this. And so she sings Bridge Over Troubled Waters by Simon and Garfunkel. Probably not a song that one of us would choose, and she went up there with good size, down to here, up to here, high heels here, with nice ankle bracelets, and we just loved her into the church. And see, we don't know. Another person might have said, "That's terrible. You should never let that happen in this church." And you don't know the understanding. So the dampener is, this person is just, in fact, they're not evil.
All right, raise your hand if you want another minute.
So,
Okay, feeling generous again. You get another minute.
what's that? Because they're right. And I have to be right because I want to go to heaven. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. From your background, from your family history, yeah, well, they have to be right. They have to be right. Yeah, right. Relationship, excuse me, the relationship be damned. I have to be right. And that's, a lot of people are like that. You know, they don't, their relationship isn't as important as doing the right thing and being the right decision. In fact, I'll run over you if I need to because I'm right. Because I read it in the Bible and I interpreted it this way. So everybody else has to interpret it that way. Or you're not right. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to sit here and lecture you for the next hour until you agree. Right, exactly. So I'm sorry, I'm dominating.
All right. Let's tap into the wisdom of the group. Someone help me out. What's the difference between a generator, amplifier, and dampener roles? Oh, let's get the microphone. We want to get the truth on record.
Well, in our group, the generator has the problem, the amplifier makes it sound worse than what it is, and the dampener try to calms it down.
Awesome. Perfect. Love it.
No one helped me.
You took 15 seconds to explain what it took me 20 minutes. So, nice work. Good. Excellent. Does a triangle always have all three roles represented?
No.
No. Good.
The dampener can be missing.
Dampener is often missing, right? Often missing. What is the difference between the insider versus the outsider?
If you're the outsider and that's where you're supposed to be, then it's not your circus, it's not your monkeys.
That's good. That's good. Good.
And it's probably better to stay there, not be, because, you know, and the insider, it is their problem between each other.
Yes.
And they really need to work on the problem, not attacking each other.
Awesome. Excellent.
But Bryan, how do you know when to bear your brother's burdens?
Good. We'll talk about it at the end. We'll look at that verse. Absolutely. Because there is absolutely a tension between caring for yourself and caring for others. And Paul talked about that. Yeah. One more. Yeah.
It's just interesting that this applies to individual people in a family, but it also applies to whole nations.
It applies to groups. It applies to parties. It applies to people groups. It applies to political affiliations. It's not just individuals. This scales up pretty well. Sometimes, I guess I'll say this, we'll move on. Sometimes America is really good at jumping in to help other people, other countries, other nations solve their problems. But they don't, it's sometimes easier to deal with other people's problems than their own. I don't know how much time I want to spend on this. Let's go on to the next. Anyone else want to make a comment? Or maybe we're done, we'll go for a break and come back. And what time does the next one start? No break. Can we have a 5-minute break, a bio break?
Yes, I think we should, Bryan.
Let's do a bathroom, water, fresh air break. Come back. Can we come back in like 8 minutes? Does that work?
So like what, 3:05?
3:05. Let's do 3:05.
Okay.
All right. If you can hear my voice, that's a secret sign between you and me that we're about to begin again. So call your friends that are outside that are still stretching their legs or getting some water to come back in. Because we're about to go over something that I don't want us to miss. And we're going to be stretching our brains even more. In fact, the first part of the seminar was just a warm-up for this part. So we're going to be wrestling with some new ideas, some new terms, some new definitions. And what I want you to do, I want you to think of triangles as having their own personality or their own characteristics, their own attributes. The triangles separate from the people or the parties in them. We talked about the role and position that we play in a triangle. Now we're going to be talking about the triangle itself, the triangle that we create. And the triangle that we create has its own attributes or characteristics. I want you to think of the triangle almost like its own entity. Are we on board with this idea? Hopefully, because that's what we'll be talking about for the next hour and a half. We'll be talking about the stability and instability of the triangle. Let's say I go to a restaurant and I order some soup. And the waiter brings out some soup and says, "Careful, it's hot." What is the waiter saying to me? Don't burn yourself. So is the waiter talking about temperature? Could the waiter also be talking about like the spiciness? Is that a possibility? Careful, it's hot. Ooh, that salsa is hot. Oh, it's hot outside. Oh, the car is hot. Ooh, that pepper is hot. Words don't have meanings. They get meanings from the context. So I'm about to use some words that will get meaning from this context specifically. We'll be talking about stability and instability. Triangles that are stable and triangles that are not stable. They are unstable. And when I talk about the stability of the triangle, whether it's stable or unstable, I am not at all talking about the health of the triangle. You can have healthy triangles that are unstable. You can have healthy triangles that are stable. You can have unhealthy triangles that are stable. You can also have unhealthy triangles that are unstable. So when I use the terms stable and unstable, am I referring at all to the health of the triangle? No, I am not. But I guarantee some of us are going to be tempted to think that because we think stability is better than instability. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just describing where the triangle is stable, as it wants to stay the same, or the triangle is unstable, and it wants to change. Let's see if we can go forward with this idea. So, the stability of the triangle predicts what the triangle itself wants to do. Stable triangles want to stay the same. They do not want to change. Doesn't mean they can't change, but they are resistant to change. Stable triangles are resistant to change. Doesn't mean they can't change, but they're resistant to change. Unstable triangles want to change. It doesn't mean they're going to, but they have a propensity for, they are trying to change. So stable triangles resist change. This has nothing to do with how healthy or unhealthy the triangle is. And unstable triangles are wanting to change. Basically, stable triangles are pushing the triangle itself, not the people in them, but the triangle itself is trying to become stable. Doesn't mean it's going to, and it is not talking at all about the health of the triangle. It's just saying that it's trying to change. So, little quiz. Oh, I have the answer up there. Do the labels of stable or unstable describe the amount of dysfunction or health of the triangle? No. It's just talking about whether the triangle is resistant to change or whether it wants to change. Give me a thumbs up if you're on board with this idea so far, even if you don't know how it applies. This idea that stable triangles want to stay the same and unstable triangles want to change. Okay, so several thumbs. We're going to move on. There are two types of stable triangles. And remember, these stable triangles want to stay the same. They want to stay the way they are. Here are two stable triangles. The one on the left All three people get along, the one on the right, two people get along, and they have a common enemy. These two are stable triangles. And this has nothing to do with the health or dysfunction of the triangle. It's just describing the triangle's propensity to want to stay the same and resistant to change. Unstable triangles want to change. They don't want to be unstable. They're seeking change. Doesn't mean they're automatically going to do it, but this triangle is leaning towards change. On the bottom left, we have two people that do not get along, but they have a common friend at the top. On the right-hand side, nobody gets along with anybody. These two on the bottom are two unstable triangles, and this is what we're talking about for the next few minutes. Here's a stable triangle: Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. We all get along. We all support each other. We're all for the same sort of thing. This also happens to be a fairly healthy triangle. This is a stable triangle, and stable triangles, they want to stay the same. Good, stable triangle want to stay the same. Here's another one. In Genesis 16, Abram, Sarah, and Hagar, this is a stable triangle at this initial idea. This might change as the story goes along, but at this point in time, here's a solution. We're all going to work towards this together. This is a stable triangle, which is resistant to change in Genesis 16. This will look different later on. Exodus 2, we have Miriam, baby Moses. Hey, I know someone who can provide milk for this baby, and Jochebed. There are several triangles here. There are four people. There are four triangles. We have one on the top left, Jochebed, Pharaoh's daughter, and Miriam. We have one on the top right, Jochebed, biological baby, Moses, and Pharaoh's daughter. We have one on the bottom right with Pharaoh's daughter, baby Moses, and Miriam. We have one on the bottom left, Jochebed, baby Moses, and Miriam. We have four triangles. All these triangles are stable, and stable triangles what? They want to stay the same. Good, good. All of these triangles are stable. Here's another stable triangle. No bond is stronger than two co-workers who hate the same person. If there are two people who get along, me and my best friend co-worker, and there's a new co-worker that comes that looks different, smells different, acts different, we just don't like them, we now have a common enemy. This is a stable triangle. Stable triangles resist change. Stable triangles want to stay the same. It's not necessarily pleasant for the person who's the co-worker, but we're not thinking about the people in the triangle, we're talking about the triangle itself now, right folks? Talking about the triangle itself. This is a stable triangle. It resists change. Because me and my coworker both agree that we don't like this coworker. So even if this coworker tries to repair the relationship with me or my coworker, we might be resistant to that because the triangle is resistant to change. The triangle has its own characteristics outside of the three people in it. Here's another stable triangle. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. I do not like the Patriots. I will never like the Patriots. So they are always my enemy. And whoever is playing against the Patriots, I am always for them, and they are always against the Patriots. This is a stable triangle. This will never, ever change, because stable triangles are resistant to change. Genesis 3:15. When God created this earth, he created Adam and Eve, he said, after the fall, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her seed and your seed, because God was trying to create a stable triangle where God and humanity have a common enemy. So the triangle, as it was set up, is resistant to change. But we know the people in the triangle may want something different than the triangle wants, right? We know that some people in the triangle, the deceiver at the top, is trying to change the triangle any way that he can, right? It's not going to change between God and the deceiver on the left-hand side, but he's hoping to try and sow some doubt, or say, maybe God doesn't have your best interest in mind, or I will allow you to do whatever you want. You should take care of yourself, put yourself first above everybody else. Whatever that is, Satan is trying to change this triangle. The triangle as it was originally set up was stable, so it's resistant to change. Doesn't mean it can't change, because people in the triangle might want something different from what the triangle itself has a propensity for. Addiction. Maybe me and another person. And let's say this other person that I'm in a relationship with has an addiction with computers, or gambling, or substances, or their career. And I have a good relationship with this other person. What I want, what Bryan wants, would be for the other person to have some tension between them and their addiction, their career, whatever that is, so that we can have a stable triangle and both agree that the stuff at the top is bad. And that creates a stable triangle. And stable triangles, I want to say the same, they're resistant to change. Good. So I actually want this to happen. Here's an unstable triangle. This is Bryan's least favorite triangle. This is the hardest one for me to navigate. Especially when you're Y. When you're in their Y position, you're trying to maintain a good relationship with both people. But these two people are fighting like cats and dogs. Very challenging triangle to be in. And this is our first unstable triangle. And unstable triangles actually want to change. And sometimes they want to change, but not in the direction we want them to. So, actually, Pastor Elijah, if you were here last Sabbath, I'm bringing an example that he talked about last Sabbath. These are great examples. I asked him permission if I could share it. In Acts 15, Paul and John called Mark have some tension between them. This is an unstable triangle. Barnabas is trying to remain neutral and have a good relationship with Paul and simultaneously have a good relationship with John Mark. If you hear last week, that's what Elijah was talking about. This is an unstable triangle, and unstable triangles want to change. So what happens is this instability of the triangle was actually leading Paul, because it's uncomfortable to be an unstable triangle. Paul actually tried to call Barnabas to the mat and say, you have to make a choice. And he's expecting Barnabas to join him so we can both agree that John Mark is on the outs. But instead, Barnabas joined Paul Mark. This is what Paul wanted. Joined John Mark. This is what Paul wanted, but what actually happened was it became unstable and then became stable again, and now Paul is on the outs. Let's back that up. So this is unstable. And what we are hoping, what we all usually want, is for the triangle, for everyone to get along so we become one big happy family. But it doesn't always move that way. Sometimes the instability of the triangle moves a different direction. So instead, we have this unstable triangle, and Paul kind of forced Barnabas to make a choice, and Barnabas chose to join John Mark instead of Paul. And now this triangle becomes stable. This is what happens. The triangle itself has some propensity toward a certain thing, and it may want something different from the people who are inside the triangle. Let's pretend it's you, and you have two friends who get along, or they used to get along, but now they don't. Difficult choice for you. Who do I spend my time with? Because we can't spend all time all together anymore, because they're fighting. There's tension between them. So I have to choose one, and each friend is trying to pull me to their side or the other person's side, and I can get roped into other people's choice because they're trying to get me to their side so I can support them. It's difficult to be in the you position because each friend is wanting you to join their side. It could be a teenager and your partner. Hey, the teenager and the partner aren't getting along. They're calling you to come in to be a mediator, but each of them is desperately wanting you to take their side. You got to support me. I'm your partner. You got to support me. I'm your parent. You pull to both sides, and you feel like you have to make a choice, and it may not just be the people in the triangle. It may be the triangle's propensity to seek stability, and right now this is an unstable triangle, and it wants to be stable. Anytime there's a triangle that has tension in one or three legs, so an odd number of legs, that's an unstable triangle. If there's either two legs that have some tension or zero legs, that's a stable triangle. So this is often what happens when me and another person, let's say the other person has has no tension with their addiction or their career or their substance. This is an unstable triangle, and this is a difficult triangle to be in. I don't enjoy being in these triangles, but I'm not in charge of other people's decisions. I don't have enough power to make choices for other people. I can barely make good choices for myself on a good day. So I'm in this unstable triangle, and this is an unpleasant triangle to be in, because maybe I don't like these things, but I like you. But you like these things. So, well, how do I navigate this? It may not even be addiction or career. It may be political affiliation. I may like you, but I don't like the party that you support. oh, what do we do? How do we navigate this relationship when you support things that I don't support? This is a difficult triangle to be in, and it's difficult because the triangle is unstable.
Can you explain one more time how you can tell? You said the squiggly lines, if it's two or more squiggly lines, it's
Good. So it's one squiggly line or three squiggly lines. So an odd number of squiggly lines, 1 or 3, that's an unstable triangle. Unstable. If it's an even number, 2 or 0, that's a stable triangle. So unstable triangles have 1 or 3 squiggly lines. Stable triangles have 2 or 0. So what I want in the triangle, I want to seek stability. And I hope that eventually the other person will have some tension between them and their addiction or their career or their political party or the music they listen to, whatever it is. I'm hoping that the right-hand side will change. But maybe the other person will not like me chirping in their ear all the time, and they will get upset that I'm getting on their back about this, and they might create tension between me and them, and now the triangle is stable. And now them and their addiction, or them and their political party, or them and their career both agree that I'm getting in the way of their fun. And now the triangle is stable, and this triangle will resist some change. So when you look at this picture, the top ones are unstable, and there's 1 or 3 squiggly lines, and the bottom ones, 2 or 0 squiggly lines, so the bottom ones are stable. When we're stuck in this unstable place, sometimes we're hoping we go all the way to the bottom right to seek stability that way. But many times, the triangle moves over here to like the bottom left, to this sort of stable triangle. So the stable triangle resists change, but it's not what we were hoping for. We were hoping to all get along as one big happy family. Matthew 6:34. No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. It's hard to serve 2 different masters. If I work at Domino's and I also work at McDonald's, 2 different jobs, and they both schedule me for the same shift from 12 till 5 on Sunday, which job am I going to go to? I have to make a choice. But if I go to one job, the other job's going to be upset with me. Oh, but if I go to this job might fire me. So I'm stuck in this unstable triangle. It's hard for me to perpetually maintain a good relationship with both parties who are against one another. It's very challenging to navigate. So here's one unstable triangle. I don't know where Pastor Cliff comes down on team drums or team no drums. I don't know very much about this congregation. I don't see any drums up here. I don't know if you ever have a djembe, or sometimes I have no idea what happens. Maybe you can have drums downstairs, not up here. I have no idea. But there might be some people in the congregation that are okay with drums. But there are some people in the congregation that are not okay with drums. Regardless, Pastor Cliff is probably going to try and maintain a good relationship with both parties, right? But if there are ever drums up on stage, the anti-drum people will say, get those drums off. And if there's never drums on stage, the pro-drum people might say, can we have some drums once in a while? And it's not always the people that want this. Sometimes it's the triangle that is pushing, because unstable triangles want to change. Good. Here's another unstable triangle. Sometimes people are more team law. Some people are more team grace. And wherever you are, maybe your Pastor Cliff is trying to maintain a good relationship with both parties, even though both parties might be at odds with one another. We on board with this idea so far? Yeah? I hope so. We have 6 more examples of this. Dogs or cats. Some people are cat people. Some people are dog people. Pastor Elijah seems pretty neutral here, trying to maintain a good relationship with dog lovers and cat lovers, even though we might fight like dogs and cats, trying to maintain a good relationship with both parties. But each side is going to try and pull him to their side. Oh, but dogs are so cute. Oh, but cats are so self-sufficient. So he can get pulled to each side. I don't know what this church did when it came to mask or no mask. It sounded like that there were some worship activities that happened out in the parking lot. Is that right? As a way to kind of navigate this, so we wouldn't let silly piece of fabric get in the way of us worshiping together. But some people were probably upset that we were meeting in the first place. And other people were upset that some people weren't coming. Right? Okay, how about this? Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter. This kind of representation of larger political ideologies. Maybe Pastor Elijah's trying to hold on, have a good relationship with both parties, even though these parties might disagree with one another. So I guarantee there are people in the population, in this congregation, that might support one or the other. How about here? How we respond to the vaccine. Some people are using or used alternative methods to respond, and some people preferred the vaccines. So these two people may disagree how we're supposed to respond to COVID, but maybe Cliff is trying to maintain a good relationship with both parties, even though they disagree. Global warming is just people hugging trees versus global warming just God hugging us closer. Depending on how you see what's happening with the environment, these two people may disagree about this, but maybe Pastor Elijah's still trying to care and be good friends with both sides. How about this one? Looking at this carpet, I don't see it being green or this burnt orange. It's a nice neutral tan. And one thing I talked about with Cliff, he said, I'm so glad this is neutral because everyone can agree that this is okay colors. Because if it's green or orange, someone's going to be upset about this. There's a lot of fights that happen in board meeting about the color of the carpet in the church. And the pastor's always trying to make sure that we don't lose someone just because of a disagreement. Yes?
Did you back up the slide once?
This one? One more. Okay. One more?
They've got
Go forward one more, this one. People want to take a picture of you, Elijah. Okay, I'll go back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll go back to this one. Here we go. You're popular, Cliff. You look good in these sunglasses. They're trying to take a picture of you. Yeah. I looked on your Facebook. Yeah, okay. I couldn't find Pastor Elijah's Facebook. Did you have one? No. Yeah, smart man. Smart man. That's the real lesson from today, right? Okay. All right. Genesis 21. This is a different triangle than it was before. In Genesis 16, they were all getting along, right? Why is it different now compared to Genesis 16? Hagar's pregnant. Let's notice the addition of a third party can change the relationship between two people. The baby isn't even here yet. It's in utero. But just because she is pregnant, that has changed the relationship between Hagar and Sarah. Relationships are about threes, not twos. This is an unstable triangle. Abraham is in this situation. Wow, I'm trying to support both, but there's tension between my two wives. Finally, Ishmael comes, right? But Sarah wants nothing to do with Ishmael. So now Hagar, hopefully supporting her baby, but Sarah does not like Ishmael or Hagar. So the bottom triangle is stable while the top one is unstable. Go on board with this? No. Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to have, if I'm a bad teacher, hopefully I can pound it into you through repetition. We're going to do this about 30 more times. So we're going to take the same family, we're going to rotate it on one axis, and let's see this again. Sarah, Hagar, and Abraham. This is an unstable triangle, and unstable triangles want to change. Good. So here comes Isaac, here comes Ishmael. First Ishmael, then Isaac. Abraham probably wants to have a good relationship with both. If you heard this last night, we talked about how Abraham is not a morning person. There are 3 times in the Bible where Abraham gets up early, and each time it's because he's thinking this might be one of the last times I see my son alive at home. So to me, that he wants to have a good relationship with Isaac and Ishmael. We know that Sarah and Isaac and Abraham, on the top right, is that a stable triangle or an unstable triangle? Stable, good. And stable triangles want to stay the same. Good. Bottom, Hagar, Abraham, Ishmael, stable triangle or unstable? Stable. And stable triangles want to? Oh, I love this. So we have some stable triangles and one unstable triangle. But we're not done yet, right? What about the relationship between Hagar and Isaac? Sarah and Ishmael. We know that Sarah does not like Ishmael. We know that we know that Ishmael ends up Isaacing Isaac, teasing Isaac. There's some tension between the brothers. There's tension between Sarah and Ishmael. There's a stable triangle. So what's the solution to this big mess in this family? What is Sarah's sweet solution? Get rid of him, right? When there's this big mess, how do I simplify this? Kick him out of the family. Too much unresolved tension. Let's get rid of him. One happy, stable triangle. And all that tension has just disappeared into the desert, right? We never have to deal with that tension ever again, right? For multiple generations, for thousands of years, we've dealt with this tension. Kicking people out of the family is a short-term solution, and it does not get rid of the anxiety. It just pushes them around, because triangles are forever. Right, here's our third unstable triangle. Here's Jacob, Laban, and Leah. Nobody gets along with anyone else. Unstable triangles want to change. So, if we find ourselves in an unstable triangle, the triangle that is unstable is seeking stability. And we may want something to happen, but the triangle or other people in the triangle might want something different from what we want. And we're not in charge of other people. We're barely in charge of ourselves on a good day. So we really need to see triangles having this power, this influence in and of themselves that actually influence our interaction with other people. The reason unstable triangles are so unpleasant is because this unstable triangle is trying to seek stability, even though other people in the triangle may not want to change. And that tension between what the triangle wants and what we want is deeply uncomfortable. And maybe right now you're like, I don't really understand the difference between stable and unstable triangles, and I'm afraid to ask. I have good news for you. Get in our small groups. Explain it to Charlie. So what is the difference between stable versus unstable triangles? Can you draw or give an example of a stable triangle? Can you draw or give an example of an unstable triangle? So get in your groups of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 and try and answer these questions.
She knows she's out. I'm sorry. And we know she should be out. So everything's fine. Except for she doesn't want to be out. That's the problem. Now, let's take this example again. You don't want her in the triangle, but I do. But I want you too. Be unstable, right? Because, because there's only one. There's only no. It's unstable because it's one. But I thought that the stable means that there's one zigging line. Which is this is unstable, isn't it? Unstable. Okay, the first example was that, what was the first example? There's two straight lines there because you still have Abraham and Hagar and Abraham and Sarah. Yeah, see, that's the one squiggly one. I thought that's still stable. Okay, yeah, right, exactly. I remember that. I remember you saying. So, that's stable. Yeah, that's a lot.
But when, see, Abraham liked both Hagar and Sarah.
Sarah and Abraham. Sarah and Hagar didn't get along. So
that's still stable for that.
Yeah, because that's one. See, I don't know if you're counting the straight lines or the squiggly lines.
All right, raise your hand if you want another minute. Okay? Still generous. You get one more minute.
So if I am in relationship with both of them, they're in relationship with each other. But if I'm not in relationship with her, I'm in relationship with her, she's not in relationship with me.
All right, if we can get those microphones back out. Kurt and Cliff, that would be helpful, because I'm about to tap into the wisdom of the group. Help me out. What's the difference between stable versus unstable triangles? Someone out. Raise your hands, we get the microphone to you.
Math.
Math, okay, yes. That's a good start. Good. What else? What's the difference between stable versus unstable?
One wants to change.
Which one wants to change?
The unstable want to change.
Good. And what does the stable triangle want?
To stay.
To stay. Yeah, stay like it is. Awesome. Great. Can someone provide an example of a stable triangle? All straight lines. Everyone gets along. Close. If there are two lines that are squiggly, yeah, two lines. If we have a common enemy, if Cliff and I have a common enemy, Kurt, this is a stable triangle. We don't like that he has a yellow microphone. So we have a common enemy. Or we all get along. That's a stable triangle. Good. What's an example of an unstable triangle? One or three squiggly lines. Good. Do we have an example of what that might look like in your life? Yeah, great.
Where a couple has an issue between themselves and they're trying to explain, each of them's trying to explain the issue to a third person.
Yes.
And they want the third person to help them solve it, and that's really not, it's not stable. The third person says, I think I need to get out of here.
Whoa, okay. So you're kind of jumping ahead now. What do we do in the situation? You must have looked ahead at my slides, right? Two people experience some tension, trying to rope in a third party to take their side. We're going to find this example right up here. Let's say there's spouse A who has two friends, and they regularly meet together for cinnamon rolls on Mondays with friend A and friend B. So spouse A, friend A, and friend B all used to go to cinnamon rolls on Mondays. For some reason, something happened. Friend A thought that friend B was supposed to pay for the cinnamon rolls, or they didn't like what they got for a birthday gift. Whatever it is, all of a sudden, friend A and friend B aren't getting along. So is this a stable or unstable triangle? It's an unstable triangle because spouse A is caught in the middle, trying to maintain a good relationship with friend A and with friend B, but both these friends are not getting along. So this is an unstable triangle. So what does spouse A do here? Talks to their spouse, right? Oh, I have difficulty with my two friends, my two cinnamon friends. What am I supposed to do, right? So now she's bringing her anxiety to their partner, his or her partner. And then spouse B, good news, spouse B already has a well-formed opinion about friend A and friend B. Spouse B likes friend A, does not like friend B. So all of a sudden, we have some triangles, right? Top left, we have a stable triangle, both spouses and friend A. On the top right, we have spouse A, spouse B, and friend B. This is an unstable triangle because spouse A is trying to maintain a good relationship with their spouse and their friend, even though their spouse has a negative opinion of their friend B. At the bottom left, spouse B and friend A, even though they may not even know it, they're in a stable triangle because they both agree that friend B is in the wrong. And then spouse A is in an unstable triangle with friend A and friend B. So all of a sudden, we have a mix of stable and unstable triangles here. We seen some of this? Let's try and do another example. These same two spouses, they're in a lot of trouble. They start to have some sort of disagreement between them. Luckily, they have parents. And one of the best things you can do when you have problems in your romantic life is to seek advice from your parents, right? So spouse B reaches out to their parent and says, "Parent, can you believe what my spouse did to me?" And parent of B says, "What? Who treated my baby that way? They should not treat you that way." Is this stable or unstable triangle? This is a stable triangle. We have a common enemy here. Good. Luckily, spouse A still has one of their parents alive. So spouse A goes to their parent. "Can you believe what happened? What my spouse did to me?" And then my spouse went to their parent. "Oh, they did what? Tell me more." So parent of A says, "Well, they should never treat you that way. That is not fair. We got to stand up. We got to change their behavior." So now parent of A has this conflict with spouse B. So we have some stable triangles here. And then finally, parent of A and parent of B are Facebook friends, right? So they can chirp on each other's Facebook pages about this. So every triangle here is stable. The top left, parent of B, spouse B, have some conflict with parent of A, common enemy. The bottom right, parent of B and spouse B, have a common enemy, spouse A. The bottom left, parent of A, spouse A, agree that spouse B is bad. And the top left, parent of A, spouse A, agree that parent of B is bad. So we have all 4 triangles are stable. And stable triangles resist change. Doesn't mean they can't change, but they resist change. And notice how this is divided along family lines. We see this? Okay. So, as we change one leg of the triangle, yes, okay, the top left triangle, parent of A, parent of B, and spouse A, that's one triangle on the top left. We have a triangle on the top right as well. Parent of A, parent of B, and spouse B. That's another one on the top right. The bottom right is another triangle. Parent of B, spouse A. The bottom right is this third triangle. And finally, the bottom left. Parent of A, and spouse B. That's also another triangle. So there are 4 triangles here. All of them are stable. All of them resistant to change. Doesn't mean they can't change, which is good news, because spouse A and spouse B go to counseling. They get some help. They repair their relationship. And all of a sudden, there's changes to triangles in this family. 2 triangles that were stable are now unstable. In stable triangles, resist change. Unstable triangles want to change. So what happens is, spouse A and spouse B repair their relationship, and spouse B on the bottom right is now in an unstable triangle between their parent and their spouse. There's some tension. And spouse B says, "Look, Mom, Dad, we repaired our relationship. Can you get over it?" And parent of B says, "I don't know if I can forgive them. I'm still going to remember how they treated you." And spouse is like, "Well, you got to get over it, unless you don't want to come for Christmas. Because if you don't want to come for Christmas, you can hold your grudge. But it's between me and this other person. It's not even your business to begin with." And parent of B says, "I don't know." And spouse B says, "Look, get over yourself. like, this is our issue. You need to forgive this person. They're my partner. And all of a sudden, on the bottom right, this has changed to a stable triangle. Both spouses agree that parent of B needs to drop it. It's not even their issue to begin with. Spouse A talks to parent of A, says, look, I repaired my relationship with my partner. Can you please forgive them? And parent of A says, okay, you're both adults. I probably should not have gotten involved in the first place. If you're good with them, then I'm good with them. And all of a sudden, we have 4 new triangles, and they are all stable again. The bottom left, parent A, spouse A, and spouse B, that's stable. The top left, parent of A, parent of B, and spouse A, that's stable. We have a common enemy. The top right, parent of A, spouse B, and parent of B, common enemy. The bottom right, spouse A, spouse B, and parent of B, common enemy. So parent of B is upset because now everybody's mad at them. And how did this happen? Why is everyone mad at parent of B? Anyone know? Unforgiving, okay. But how did parent of B end up in this situation in the first place? Because the spouses got them involved. Parent of B, is parent of B an insider or an outsider? Outsider. But parent of B got involved. Parent of B would not be in the situation with everyone mad at them had they said, whoa, 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 whoa. So you're saying there's an issue between you and your partner? I don't know if I'm the person you should be talking with. Have you sought some professional help? Because it's not my romantic relationship, it's yours. Oh, clear message is, I'm not going to be here to dive into your stuff, because the more I get involved and take responsibility for the stress in your relationship, the more I will experience that distress. And now, everyone's mad at me. Parent of B could have avoided all of this had they said, whoa, sounds like you two have some issues you need to work out. Let me know how it goes. Do you see that? Triangles are forever. It can outlast the people in them. All right, let's look at this family. It's about to get messy. 5 people. 5 parties, rather. See what happens. So we know that Jacob prefers Rachel, right? He does not prefer Leah. Is that right? And we know there's tension, there's fertility wars between Leah and Rachel. So this triangle right here, is this stable or unstable? Stable. Ooh, good, we're getting quick at this. Because we have a common enemy, Leah. This is stable. Jacob loves Joseph, that's clear. And Joseph and Rachel probably get along. So is this triangle stable or unstable? Good. There's tension between Joseph and his brothers, right? Otherwise they wouldn't sell him into slavery, right? We know that Leah's sons like Leah, and they recognize that Leah is not the preferred wife of their biological father. So all of a sudden we have these other stable triangles. There's some stable triangle between Jacob and Joseph have a common enemy, Leah. Leah and Leah's sons have a common enemy, Joseph. We start to add these other relational lines. We know there's tension between Leah's sons and Jacob. So there's this Leah and Jacob's sons see Jacob as the common enemy. And it would not be too far of a stretch to see Leah's sons not liking Rachel because their biological mother, Leah, is on the outs, whereas Joseph's biological mother, Rachel, is on the ins. So every triangle here is stable. There's a lot of mess here, though, right? Remember how stability doesn't always mean healthy, right? There's a lot of mess here. So what is this family's sweet solution? Well, after Rachel passes away, then it's just Joseph and Benjamin, still stable. Even though people pass away, it doesn't mean the tension disappears. Still stable, but still along family lines. So the sons get rid of someone, right? Let's get rid of Joseph. Still a lot of tension there. But if you remember the story we talked about last night, something happens between when the brothers sell Joseph and then when they come down to see Joseph as he's the viceroy of Egypt, and Joseph is testing the family system to see if their brothers are still against Benjamin or have they included Benjamin as part of the family. So he's testing the family. Remember, the second time the brothers come down, He gives them their food, sends them back to Canaan, and then Joseph sends one of his servants after them to stop them, says, stop them and tell them that my divination cup was stolen. Somebody stole it. They must be spies. We're going to stop them. And all the brothers say, there's no way that we have the divination cup. You can check in all of our packs. So the servant checks in all the packs and finally comes to Benjamin's pack, opens it up, and lo and behold, there's the divination cup, right? Instead of the brothers saying, sorry, Benji, you have thief fingers. You must have stolen it. You better go back down to Egypt because we're going back home to tell our father, sorry, we couldn't do anything. The viceroy of Egypt caught Benjamin stealing his stuff. Instead, the brothers say, you're not doing that. They tear their clothes in grief, and they're united together with Benjamin. So what changes between this and later on in the story when Joseph is testing the family? I don't know for sure, but here's my guess. Did you know that Jacob requested to be buried with Leah? Not Rachel? So something has shifted. Conversion. He had a clear favorite wife in Rachel, but something happened after Rachel passed. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because Leah was the only wife available. I don't know, but he requested to be buried with Leah, not his preferred wife. So that tells me something repaired between these two. And whenever you change one line of a triangle, when there's a group of people, multiple triangles will change from stable to unstable or stable to unstable. Now we have some unstable triangles with Leah, Jacob, and Leah's sons. This is now an unstable triangle, and Leah, Benjamin, and Jacob also an unstable triangle. So there's a chance, because unstable triangles want to seek change, there's a chance that Benjamin, who no longer has his biological mother, no longer has his full brother Joseph, that through all this, that like, wow, Benjamin's the baby of the family, maybe we should treat Benjamin a little bit different, and maybe Leah's sons start to see Jacob a little bit different. And if we could start to change this, all of a sudden, this becomes another set of stable triangles, very different from the previous ones. And relationships are repaired. Because this is what happens when Joseph is testing the family system. This seems to be the case, that the brothers are in support of Benjamin.
And don't you think they were impressed when Jacob was grieving so badly at Joseph's death?
Maybe, but they never told him. After they see their father grieving, it's not like, oh, actually, Dad, we lied to you. Sounds like it was a secret. So they kept it a secret. So there's still might be some tension there, but something has changed within the family system that the Leah's sons treat Benjamin differently. And sometimes this is what happens in a family. There's a lot of tension. If even one leg of the triangle can change, the whole family system may start to change. You're not in charge of other people, barely in charge of yourself, but if you can repair one leg of the triangle, the triangles in the family might put pressure on other people to also make changes in their relationships as well. It can be a domino effect. All right, so let's get practical. We talked about the role, the position, stability. What do we do to detriangulate ourselves so we don't get stuck in these messy relationships? What can we do? What are some practical things we can do moving forward so we don't get caught in other people's mess? Because some people are not going to appreciate your growth because they actually liked it when you were smaller, more broken, therefore more easier to control. And God's plan for your life might be overturning their agendas, and they may not like this and they may protest this. Any changes you may make in your life when it comes to triangles, some people may not like because it's to their advantage for you to continue accepting and receiving their hot potatoes. They may not like the changes you're going to make. And the first change is your mindset. It's not even something you do. It's just being aware that you are in triangles all the time. Without even knowing it, you are brokering anxiety. But you do not have to, so you can change your mindset. And one of the first things you need to be thinking about is reflecting upon what sort of triangles you get stuck in. Because the ones that are really tricky, you're going to see over and over again. So they're kind of predictable in this way. Your tricky relationships you can plan for and think ahead and think about how you want to or don't want to spread anxiety. So, before you say or do anything, remember you might be already absorbing their anxiety from their unresolved conflict that was not your anxiety to begin with. You're already receiving hot potatoes. You're already experiencing that snowplow effect of the snow coming your direction. And we don't want you to react to that anxiety. So before you even do anything, recognize I might already be absorbing their anxiety. So when you suspect that what they're sharing with you is not your problem, and then you know that the anxiety does not belong to you, you can make some intentional decisions about this. This is my youngest daughter. She did not like diaper changes. So diaper change, you go to pick her up, and she would already kind of cringe away from that. So the problem and anxiety are the first two things you're going to be thinking about, because there are some things that are your responsibility and some things that are not your responsibility. Your responsibility for your own happiness, choice, and behavior. You are not responsible for other people's happiness, choices, or behavior. So the two first questions to ask yourself. 1, is this my problem? You got to figure this out. Is this my problem? 2, is this my anxiety, or am I catching it from someone else? If you can answer these two questions, you've gone a long way to help you decide whether or not you want to carry someone else's hot potatoes. Is this my problem? Am I an insider? Is this my anxiety, or am I catching it from someone else? After those two questions, the next two questions you ask, or next two tasks that you have to do, are to sketch out the triangle, draw it out. Figure out if this is a stable triangle or an unstable triangle. Draw it out, put the people or the parties in the triangle, and try and figure out, is this stable or unstable? Is this resistant to change? Is this seeking change? And then you make a plan. Next time this person comes to talk with me, I've already sketched it out. I've already recognized whether this is my problem or not, or if I'm catching their anxiety or not, so I can make a clear plan what I'm going to do next time someone tries to rope me into their triangle. So what might this plan look like? It means setting boundaries, and setting boundaries does not mean you're a cold-hearted robot. It means you're being smart about how you're interacting with other people. So this mindset of detriangulation is moving to the outside position. It's not my problem, it's their problem. And I know what's really happening here. They're trying to rope me in to their issue, but if I get involved, I'm going to experience the distress of their relationship. I don't know if I want to do that. And I want to be an anxiety dampener. As they bring their anxiety as their +1 to me, instead of amplifying it or turning it and sharing with someone else, I want to intentionally be an anxiety dampener. Whew, that's a lot. I'm glad you came to me. Okay, let's take a breath. Because just like upsetness and anxiety can spread from person to person, calmness can also spread from person to person. So instead of them spilling their anxiety onto you, you have the opportunity to gift them with some of your calmness. So taking care of yourself first and being calm. Recognizing where you're located, whether you're an outsider or an insider, if it's a stable or unstable triangle. And maybe you want some specific prompts from Bryan. Make it clear. Put boots on the ground. Tell me what I can say to this person. Here's some examples. From a neutral, yet encouraging stance, I want you to use the word you. Second person singular, second person plural. You want to use the word you. So, that's a lot. What are you going to do about it? What do you think needs to happen next? You're helping them, but subtly letting them know who's responsible for this. Do you hear this? And I'm not giving my solutions. You are eliciting their opportunity to get creative to solve their own problems. But they can't do this when they're all upset. That's why the calming presence is so important. You can go, I know what's happening. They're trying to rope me into their problem. But it's not my problem. And it's not my anxiety. I'm definitely sensing anxiety, but it's not mine. It's coming from them. Because I didn't have it until they walked into the room to talk with me. And now I'm experiencing this anxiety. So I know that they're bringing their anxiety as their +1. I don't need to catch it. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to say things like, well, you're resourceful. I bet you figure out a creative way through this. What do you think the first step is? Doesn't mean you have to solve the whole problem, but what's the very first step? You're providing the sounding board, but you're also giving them an opportunity to come up with their own solutions. Because if you dive in and say, oh, I've been here before, I know the solution, you got to do A, B, and C, and they walk away and they try A, B, and C, and it doesn't work, they're going to come right back to you, and they're going to be pissed off, right? Because the solution you gave me backfired. Great. It's not your job. Not your circus, not your monkey. I think someone said that. Well, I know you're capable of taking a course of action which will ultimately be in your best interest. What does that look like for you? You're really giving them an opportunity to calm down and think and use their own resources to come up with a solution. If it's a couple, well, I'm sorry you're in this situation. It sounds really tough. But it sounds like the issue's between both of you, not me. I'm confident that you two can come to some sort of resolution or get some help from a professional. What do you think you need to get there? Again, you're slowing things down, really giving them an opportunity to find some solutions that work in accordance with their values for their own life. Perhaps you come from a culture that is more collectivistic. You say, Bryan, I cannot do this. We have a social responsibility to get involved in other people's stuff. Great. You can use the word we or I'm going to help you, but in your mind, think you. Okay, we'll do this together. I'm here for you. All right, what's the first step? Again, putting it gently back on them, saying the message that you believe that they have the ability to start to solve their own problem. And if you do this enough, you will train them that when they come to you, your calming presence, they start to develop their own agency to solve their own problems, and all of a sudden, they're going to pick up the phone to call you, and they're going to go, wait a second. I think I might know what I should do. And they may not even call you because they've had a lot of practice with you, and they start to develop their own belief that they can solve their own problems. So, if you can detriangulate yourself, then you're be able to be more aware of what's happening in the push and pull of your other relationships. You're not going to get sucked into as many triangles, and instead you can act in accordance with your values instead of being caught in the waves and the wind and the emotions of other people's anxiety. Because when you resist getting pulled into that triangle, you don't react to that anxiety. Instead, you can respond in accordance with your values. If you catch their anxiety, you might feel like, I need to solve their problem, but it may not be yours to solve. So, if you can do this, you can be on the outside and be curious. I wonder what the violated value is, or what's really at stake here for these people. So when they come to you, your calming presence, what do you believe needs to happen next, and what's really at stake for you right now? And they can start to think about these questions and find their own solution. And in doing so, you'll start to teach everyone else in your systems, in your family, your friend groups, that you're not willing to be a depository for their hot potatoes. Instead, you can be a calming presence to empower them to solve some of their own problems. You are not on call for whoever wants to dump their anxiety on you. That's not your responsibility. They may want you to do that, but it's not your responsibility. And your calm unwillingness to be roped into their problems, roped into their triangle, will model a new and better way of managing anxiety and relationships for the entire system. And they may start to realize, I actually don't like when other people come to me with their problems. I can do the same thing. Wow, so what are you going to do about it? All of a sudden, people are taking more responsibility for their own stuff and addressing their own issues instead of just trying to pass it around and shovel that snow around. Go back. We're going to get to our small groups again. We're going to try and answer these questions. Explain this to Charlie. These two questions. What can I do to detriangulate myself from a challenging triangle? And how could the ability to detriangulate help myself or my church or my family? So what can I do? And if I do this, how could this help me or my family?
What can we do to detangle ourselves? Detriangleize ourselves into it? I'm interested to hear what you guys' response is, because I have one. But what do you guys think? So what do you think that should happen in this situation? Because what is the problem? Where is the problem? Yeah, between the two. So it's not her problem. Certainly she has a desire to see a change, but it's not her problem. Yeah, that's kind of good. But tell me you can't change anyone, nor can the older change the behavior of the young. So technically, the older has to say, the younger needs to come and understand. So she can take responsibility for maintaining the older for the other to choose because between her and the daughter is a squiggly line, and the squiggly line between your younger daughter and me.
Who wants another minute? Raise your hand if you want another minute. I see no raised hands, so I'm going to interpret that as I should continue on. All right. Raise your hand. Someone help me out. What's one thing you can do to de-triangulate yourself from challenging triangle situation? We have a hand over here. Is there a microphone coming? Maybe? We have 2 hands on this side. Great.
The one that I first thought of, and I don't know if this is what you were sharing or not. I think we're all tired and kind of forgetting
Yeah.
what you're sharing and what we're
Yeah.
thinking on our own.
Probably fire hose approach, right?
Right.
Yeah, a fire hose approach. I'm just giving you everything, 100 pieces of information.
Yeah. The one thing that I came up with first is for me to be able to pull myself out from someone else's situation is to learn how to not put myself
Good.
first.
Love it. Good.
Into-
In the first place, don't step into their business. Good. No, that's not what you're saying. Okay, misunderstood you.
No, I'm sorry. What I mean is to make myself healthy first.
To make yourself healthy first.
And then when someone else who's coming with an unhealthy situation, because I didn't put my business in someone else's business, that I'll know how to have the boundary when someone
You'll
else
recognize what that boundary looks like.
Yes.
So when I'm healthier myself, I'll recognize when other people are trying to rope me into their stuff.
Yes.
If I'm not taking care of myself, I may not know the difference between their anxiety, my anxiety, their problem, my problem. It might all be the same. It's just everybody's hot potatoes. But when I'm healthier, I have a clearer idea of what's actually happening here. Good.
Okay. I was going to say set a limit, and it's going to be different for everybody, but
Correct.
I had something similar happen to me a few years ago, and I should have set time limits because it ended up being a bad deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're allowed to support them in even using the second person singular or plural language. So what do you think you need to do next? But if they're talking for a long time and every day or every week they're constantly calling you, you're allowed to say, you know what? I don't think I have the emotional capacity for this today. I don't know if I can do that right now. I'm sorry. And just be done. You don't have to talk with them every time they want to talk with you. Good. What's something else you can do to de-triangulate yourself from a challenging situation? Yes, Kurt.
What about Matthew 18?
Good. Matthew 18 principle. I think I have that up here. Here we go. Good. So we often use this, Matthew 18, as a checklist. I don't think it's meant to be a checklist. You go, you meet with this person, it didn't work, okay, now to bring someone else with me. You got to stay at that level for a while. If you use this as a checklist, Matthew 18 becomes a punishment. You and I couldn't work things out. I'm going to bring someone on my side, and that didn't work. We're bringing forward the church. Oh, well, is that how it's supposed to work? It's not a checklist. Spend some time at each level. You don't rush to the end to try and punish someone. So I don't like how some places, some people use Matthew 18. How's that response?
Yeah, but I think just the flyby's version of it is that I don't try to get somebody else to get somebody else to do something. I need to go straight to that person. If I have an issue with that person, I need to go and talk to that person. And then you don't even begin the triangle.
Yeah, don't begin with the triangle, and don't even like, well, I tried to talk with you, Kurt. You weren't listening, so I got to jump to, finally I'm at step 2. Whoo, now someone else. No, try it again. You know, Kurt, that didn't go well. Would you mind meeting for lunch again? I want to give another go. And try and really look, I know I didn't respond the way I wanted to, and I let my anxiety get the most of me. Let me try this again. Would you give me that chance? And really stay at step 1 for a while, instead of jumping to step 2. Good. Okay, another question. What else? So what's something else we can do to de-triangulate ourselves? Hand over here.
Like you were saying, let the parties involved who are looking to you to solve their problem know that you understand that this is quite an issue. That's like, I guess you call it affirming.
Affirming, but in a calming way.
Yeah, I can see this as a problem, and I can see the issues are, important on both sides.
Yeah.
And also let them know that really I should stay out of it, but I'm sure that you with the Lord will be able to come to some solution that's
Right.
good.
So depending on your emotional capacity that day or that week or that month, you can fully remove yourself, or you could say, I can be calm for a little longer. what do you think is the first step? What's the first thing you think you might need to seek some resolution? So you're able to share some of your calming presence. They're able to get their frontal lobe back online, their frontal cortex. They're able to think clearly. Okay, maybe I should do this. What about this? I don't know. Which of those seems like the best option for you? I'm going to try this. Okay. Let me know how it goes. And then they go do it. They can report back to you. That's fine. But you're not doing it for them. You're not taking responsibility to solve their problem. Any other hands? Yes.
Bryan, question is, when you talk about being in a place of health, so you know boundaries to triangulate yourself. What does that look like, and how do you get to that place of health, or how are you aware that you are in a place of health?
Okay, good question, deep question, nuanced question. I don't know if I have time to talk about the full thing, but the shorter answer is understanding what your needs are, what your limitations are, what your values are, increasing your own insight, and you get to decide what you want to do.
So we need to bring you in for another weekend, right?
When we catch someone else's anxiety and we feel like we have to solve their problem, oftentimes we start to feel like we have to operate out of their value system, what they want, not what I want. And you have to be very clear, am I catching their anxiety or is it my anxiety? And maybe it's both. But if I'm catching their anxiety, there's a good chance that I'm getting roped into their situation. Good. Let's go to the next question, then we're almost done. So how could the ability to de-triangulate myself help my family or help my church? Because there's about 50 people here, and we're all learning this. So Pastor Elijah, Pastor Cliff, make note of who's attending today. And you can expect certain things from them now because they know about this. How could this potentially help your church or your family? If we were able to do this. Now, this takes practice. It's not easy. But if you're able to do this, how could this help your church or your family? Yes.
For one thing, the pastors would have less visitors in their office.
Perhaps, right? Or the pastors will be able to say, wow, in a very nice way, this sounds like a you problem, right? But in a nice way, oh, glad you came to me, okay. Wow, so what do you think needs to happen? Empowering them to do so. And eventually, these pastors will train y'all that you don't need to access them every time you have a problem with someone else, right? Because the pastor might be an outsider, potentially. Yes?
Less use of your time for other people's problems, more time to volunteer at church.
Ooh, yes. Then you get to choose where you spend your time instead of other people demanding that you spend your time with them. Absolutely. Good. Yes. Over here.
I got you.
Well, when you try to create a solution and you start relating out of a healthier position, other people feel permission to grow in that way as well.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. I like what's happening with them. I want to be more like that. I want to move this direction. That's nice. That's attractive, right? Just hand back here.
Like with your family, you kind of train them.
Yeah.
You're training them so that they are growing, evolving, and figuring out their own situations, that they don't have to come to you. They can come to you for empathy and support and encouragement, but not to figure out the problem.
Yes. Oh, and some people may not like that because they're used to coming to you and getting a solution. Hey, give me a solution. Come on, come on, come on. And they might protest the fact, like, you're not giving me anything. Well, okay. This is hard because you came to me for a solution and I'm not giving it to you. So now you're frustrated with me. Yeah, that's right. Man, that's also hard, huh? So what should we do about this? Again, putting it back on them. They have a responsibility to help think through this as well. Again, depending on their support needs. If it's my child, I'm going to provide a little more support. Depending on people's developmental needs, support needs, you might need to support them in different ways, right? But if it's something you think they can handle, then you need to think smart about this. Oh, yep.
I think we need to direct people to God's promise. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go.
Yes.
Instead of always depending on another human to help, direct them to God's promises to give us wisdom. Ask God for wisdom. And I think we'll have a healthier church when people learn to depend on Him instead of people, other people.
Yes, absolutely. Hand over here.
I have to say something about this, though, and that is the fact that I've received a lot of godly, wise counsel in the past.
From other people?
Yes.
Instead of from your own value
right.
system?
I mean, you can get it from yourself, but I'm saying there's just it could be a suggestion of a book,
Yep.
or something they read, or just an idea or a thought. We can still be a witness. We can still help.
Yes.
In that way. It's not getting us involved in the whole anxiety package, but it is a way to share in each other's burdens or to help each other out. I don't think that we have to say that all of it only comes from what we read, because sometimes I read things and it just doesn't come to my mind. It just it goes right over my head, and someone else might have a different take on that. And that's the reason why we have lots of good books and speakers and all kinds of other people that give us these other ideas that we can draw on.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So we can definitely direct people towards resources, or if you have a nugget of wisdom you can share. So for example, if someone comes to me and says, Bryan, I'm really anxious because I have 4 brown bananas at home and I need to make banana bread. I don't have a good recipe. I'm not going to go, ooh, that's hard. I have a really good recipe in my back pocket that our family loves, but I'm not going to share it with you. So what do you think is your first step at finding a banana bread recipe? No. If I have a quick solution and it doesn't seem like an anxious thing, I'm definitely going to give them an opportunity. But when they're anxiously overloaded and they're just looking for something, what's happening is they're really trying to seek calmness. And they think the way to seek calmness is to get rid of my anxiety and have someone else carry it. When in reality, you can remain cool, calm, collected, and you can share your calmness with them so they still have their problem, their issue, but they feel better about it. If you have a quick suggestion that can help them. But if you say, thank you for coming to me, I'm going to take responsibility for all these hot potatoes. Now I'm going to spend the next week and a half trying to solve your problem. That's a very different issue.
Yeah, that's different than just saying, if they're coming to you and asking for, can I get your advice on this thing? You can say, well, this is what my thought is on it, and then be done with it. You're not enmeshing yourself.
But if they continue the conversation, you can say, wow, this seems like a big issue. What do you think needs to happen? You can quickly turn it around, because sometimes you don't know if it's big or small. They're coming, they're talking, and if it seems like, oh boy, this is more than I was willing to handle, then you can turn it around and go, wow, this seems like a really big issue. I don't know if I necessarily have the answer for you. What do you think is the first step that's going to be able to help you? There's a hand right over here. This is gentleman. Wait, let's bring the microphone over. Here we go.
Like Pastor Elijah is always saying, we need each other.
We do need each other.
That's the heart of the whole thing, and that's what church is about. Neglect, not this. I better stop.
We do need each other, but we don't always need someone to rescue us. Sometimes we just need some support. Yeah, thank you.
I think Jill brought up a good point. We do. There are many people who have been a blessing to me in what they've said, but I remember at one point in my life where I depended too much on my husband to help me. And one time I was faced with a really big problem, and he says, honey, I can't help you. You know what to do. So he took charge of our little boy who was a toddler. I said, okay, you take care of him. And I went and closed myself in the bathroom. And I just called out to God, and I just prayed, and he knows how to take it, and he listened to me. And when I came out of there, I had peace, and I had a solution.
Praise
but
God.
Even though people can be helpful, I think we should try the Lord first, and then go to people.
Thank you, thank you. I want to show this on the screen. So this little QR code is also on the very back of the handouts that you received. I'm very interested in feedback. I'm interested in 2 things. I'm interested in your honest feedback about your experience with this seminar. And if you really liked it, I'm interested in a juicy quote that I could be using later on. So if you really liked it, and if you didn't like it, I want your feedback regardless. But if you did like it, I'm interested in a juicy quote that I could potentially put up on the website. Your name will not be attached. So those are the 2 things I'm looking for, honest feedback as well as juicy quotes. And I'm going to click to the next slide, kind of end our presentation, then I'll have some time afterwards for answering questions. Here's a little comic. I finally found it after 15 years, the scroll of truth. You're catching their anxiety if you're solving their problem. If you already find yourself solving their problem, it means you've already caught their anxiety. And you may not like that answer, but that's the case. I think there was one more question about bear each other's burdens. Let's go, here we go. Galatians 6. Brothers and sisters, even if a person is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual are to restore such a person in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself. So now Paul is talking about this tension. We have a responsibility to restore such a person in spirit of gentleness, and each one looking to yourself, so that you are not tempted as well. Bear one another's burdens, I think someone brought this up, thereby fulfill the law of Christ. But then later on, Paul kind of swings back to this side. For if anyone thinks that he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work. Take care of your own stuff. And then he will have reason for boasting, but to himself alone and not to another. For each one will bear his own load. So it's both bear one another's burdens and bear your own load, right? If you are always volunteering to bear other people's stuff, you may not have enough to bear your own load. If you start by bearing your own load, then you can decide if you want to bear someone else's burden or not, or give them the opportunity to bear their own burden, instead of robbing them of the chance to do that for themselves. So Paul's aware of this tension. It's both. Care for yourself and care for others as well. All right. Shall we close with prayer? Is that all right? Father God, relationships are so tricky down here. And we know that you know all things. And we are coming to you as people that are making mistakes on a regular basis. We come from families that have challenging dynamics. It's hard to know what to do next. So we are calling on you for your wisdom. I pray that you help us, give us insight into our own behaviors of others. Draw us closer to you so we can be in healthier relationships with you, in healthier relationships with ourselves, and healthier relationships with others. Amen. I'll stick around for questions if people have them.